What happens when a billionaire CEO publicly humiliates the wrong waitress? Ryan Calloway thought he owned everything: the penthouse, the empire, the power to crush anyone beneath him. But on one brutal Manhattan night, with his company bleeding millions by the second and his engineers panelists, he made a catastrophic mistake. He mocked a quiet waitress, offered her $100 million as a joke, dared her to solve what Harvard graduates couldn't. She picked up the pen. 5 minutes later, his entire world shattered. Stay until the end to see how this shy woman brought a billionaire to his knees. Hit like and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Aurelius, Manhattan's most exclusive private dining establishment, where membership required either generational wealth or the kind of power that made senators return phone calls. Ryan Calloway sat in the restaurant's Platinum Lounge, a soundproofed sanctuary designed for conversations that moved markets, and he was watching his empire die in real time. Say that again. Ryan's voice cut through the marble and mahogany room like a blade. Slower this time, so I can understand which part of catastrophic you people don't seem to grasp. Marcus Chen, his chief technology officer, adjusted his glasses with shaking hands. The Stanford graduate had built quantum encryption systems before he could legally drink, but right now he looked like a freshman failing his first exam. The AI routing system has entered what we're calling a cascading failure loop. Every correction we implement creates 3 new problems. We're losing approximately $4.2 million per minute across the global network. 4.2 million, Ryan didn't blink, per minute. Yes, sir. And how long has this been happening? Marcus glanced at his tablet. 47 minutes. Ryan did the math instantly. Just under $200 million. Gone. Evaporated into digital chaos while he sat in a restaurant that charged $3,000 for a bottle of wine he wasn't drinking. He leaned back in his chair, the Italian leather creaking softly, and studied the 6 people sitting around the table. Engineers, executives, crisis managers, each one pulling down 7-figure salaries. Combined, they represented about 400 years of elite education, and not one of them could fix this. "Where's Sarah?" Ryan asked quietly. Too quietly. His personal assistant, Jennifer, straightened. "Your daughter is with Emma for the night. She doesn't know anything is wrong." "Good. Keep it that way." Ryan turned to the chief operating officer, David Sterling, whose silver hair and tailored suit usually projected unshakable competence. Tonight, he just looked old. "Give me the worst-case scenario, no corporate spin. I want the truth." David cleared his throat. "If we can't stabilize the system within the next 3 hours, we'll have to manually ground the entire autonomous fleet, 2,700 cargo vessels, 43 countries. The financial penalties alone would exceed $12 billion. The reputational damage would be irreparable," Ryan finished. Titan Horizon Systems, the company I built from absolutely nothing, would become the cautionary tale business schools teach for the next 50 years. Is that about right? That's accurate, yes. Ryan stood abruptly, walking to the window. Below, Manhattan glittered like a constellation that had fallen to earth. Somewhere in that forest of light, his 7-year-old daughter was probably already asleep, dreaming whatever innocent dreams 7-year-olds had. She didn't know that her father's company, the company that paid for her private school, her ballet lessons, the trust fund that would guarantee her future, was currently imploding. She didn't know that her father was terrified. "Show me the schematics again," Ryan said. Marcus tapped his tablet, and the holographic display flickered to life above the table, a 3-dimensional nightmare of red lines and error cascades that looked less like a shipping network and more like a digital aneurysm. Ryan had been staring at these visualizations for 3 hours. They made less sense now than they had when this crisis started. The autonomous vessels are designed to calculate optimal routes using real-time data, Marcus explained for what felt like the 100th time. Weather patterns, fuel efficiency, port congestion, geopolitical restrictions. Normally, the AI processes about 40 billion variables per second across the global fleet. But something triggered a fundamental error in the core algorithm. Now the system is essentially arguing with itself, recalculating the same routes infinitely, burning through processing power and creating contradictory commands. Ships are receiving instructions to be in multiple locations simultaneously. It's chaos. So fix the algorithm. We've tried. Every modification we make creates 3 new problems. Yes, I heard you the first time. Ryan pressed his fingers against his temples. The headache that had started 2 hours ago now felt like someone was driving railroad spikes through his skull. What about reverting to the previous version? Before whatever update caused this? We tried that, Jennifer said softly. The system won't accept the rollback. It's like the AI has decided this is the correct state and refuses to acknowledge anything else. Ryan turned slowly. You're telling me our artificial intelligence is having an existential crisis? In layman's terms, yes. Jesus Christ. Ryan walked back to the table and braced both hands against the edge, staring down at the holographic catastrophe. How is this possible? We have redundancies, fail-safes, multiple independent verification systems. This shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't, David agreed. But it is. The silence that followed was broken only by the rain and the soft hum of the holographic projector. Ryan looked at each face around the table. These were the best people money could buy. Marcus had published papers on autonomous systems that other engineers studied like scripture. David had turned around 3 failing Fortune 500 companies before Ryan recruited him. Jennifer had an MBA from Wharton and a memory like a supercomputer. And they were useless. Get me Dr. Patel, Ryan said suddenly. The consultant from MIT. She's done work on system architecture for... She's in Singapore, Marcus interrupted. I already called her. She looked at the data remotely and said... He trailed off. Said what? She said if we can't solve this ourselves, we probably shouldn't be running an autonomous shipping network. The rage that ignited in Ryan's chest was immediate and volcanic. He grabbed the nearest object, an antique crystal ashtray that probably cost more than most people's cars, and hurled it across the room. It exploded against the far wall in a shower of glass that caught the light like dying stars. Everyone flinched except David, who simply closed his eyes. Sir, Jennifer began. Don't. Ryan's voice shook. Don't tell me to calm down. Don't tell me this is going to be fine. Don't give me any more corporate platitudes about challenges and opportunities. My company is dying, and the smartest people I could find are sitting here telling me there's nothing we can do about it. We're not giving up, Marcus said, though he sounded like he was trying to convince himself as much as Ryan. We have teams working around the clock in every major office. Someone will find the solution. When? Before or after we lose the company? Nobody answered. Ryan turned back to the window, his reflection ghostly in the rain-streaked glass. At 32, he was the youngest self-made billionaire in the autonomous logistics sector. Forbes had called him a visionary. TechCrunch had compared him to Elon Musk. He'd given a TED Talk on innovation that had 40 million views, and none of it mattered if he couldn't solve this. Behind him, he heard papers rustling, keyboards clicking, hushed conversations. His team was trying, he knew that. But trying wasn't good enough. In business, in life, you either succeeded or you failed. There was no partial credit for effort. Mr. Calloway? A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. Ryan turned to see one of the restaurant's waitresses standing at the entrance to the private lounge. She was maybe 30, plain-looking, with brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and the kind of face you'd forget 5 seconds after seeing. Her uniform was immaculate but inexpensive. Black pants, white shirt, the standard armor of invisible service workers everywhere. What? Ryan snapped. She flinched slightly. I apologize for the interruption, sir. The kitchen wanted to know if you and your guests would like dinner service to begin, or if you prefer to wait. Ryan glanced at the table. The food they'd ordered 2 hours ago had long since gone cold, untouched. We're not eating. Tell the kitchen to stop asking. Of course. The waitress nodded and turned to leave. Wait, Jennifer called. Actually, could you bring coffee, a full service, please? And she looked at Ryan. Should we order something? You haven't eaten since breakfast. I'm not hungry. You need to eat. I said I'm not hungry, Jennifer. Ryan's tone made it clear the discussion was over. He looked at the waitress who was standing very still, trying to be invisible. Just the coffee. Black. For everyone. Right away, sir. As the waitress disappeared, Marcus returned to the holographic display, manipulating the data with increasingly frantic gestures. Okay, what if we isolated just the North Atlantic Fleet and ran a parallel simulation? We could test different algorithmic approaches without risking the whole network.
We tried that, David said tiredly. 40 minutes ago. The simulation crashed before we could get any useful data. Then we try it again with different parameters.
Marcus, David's voice was gentle but firm. We're grasping at straws.
So what's your suggestion? Give up? My suggestion is that we acknowledge reality. This problem might be beyond our current capabilities. Maybe we need to bring in external consultants. Maybe we need to… No. Ryan turned from the window sharply. Absolutely not. The moment we bring in outside help, the moment we admit we can't handle this internally, the vultures start circling. Our competitors, the media, the shareholders. They'll smell blood in the water. Titan Horizon stock will crater before the opening bell. Better a temporary stock hit than total company failure, David countered. There won't be a company left to have a stock price if we show this kind of weakness. You know how this works, David. You've been in this business longer than I've been alive. Confidence is everything. The second we look vulnerable, we're already vulnerable. David stood, his usual composure cracking. Ryan, I've watched you build this company from a single autonomous tugboat into a global empire. I've seen you make impossible decisions and come out ahead every single time. But right now your pride is going to destroy everything you've built. We need help. The two men stared at each other across the table. Ryan felt his jaw clench, his hands curl into fists. David was right. Ryan knew he was right, but admitting it felt like swallowing broken glass. Before he could respond, the waitress returned with a rolling cart bearing an elaborate coffee service. Silver pot, porcelain cups, cream, sugar, the kind of presentation that probably took a culinary degree to execute properly. She moved around the table with practiced efficiency, pouring coffee for each person, her movements so smooth and unobtrusive that she was almost invisible. Ryan watched her work with detached irritation. Here he was, on the verge of losing everything, and somewhere in this woman's mind the most important thing happening right now was whether the coffee was served at the correct temperature. She finished pouring and moved to leave, but as she passed behind Ryan's chair, she paused. Just for a second. Ryan noticed her eyes flick to the holographic display, to the cascade of errors and failed solutions floating in the air like digital ghosts. Something you want to say? Ryan's voice was sharp. The waitress startled. No, sir, I apologize. I didn't mean to. You were staring at confidential company information. I wasn't. I didn't intend. Her face flushed. I'm sorry. It's just, I've never seen anything like that before. What is it? None of your concern. Ryan turned back to the table, dismissing her. But she didn't leave immediately. Ryan felt her presence behind him, hesitant, uncertain. He turned again, more slowly this time. Was there something else? The waitress bit her lip. I'm sorry. Really, it's not my place. I should go. But she looked at the display again, and Ryan saw something flicker in her eyes. Not curiosity exactly. More like recognition? No, that was impossible. This woman probably couldn't spell algorithm, let alone understand the catastrophic system failure that was currently destroying a multi-billion-dollar company. Nothing, she said finally. Enjoy your coffee. This time she did leave, disappearing through the door to the main restaurant. Ryan heard Marcus sigh behind him. At least someone's worried about doing their job correctly tonight, Marcus muttered. Ryan didn't respond. He was staring at his coffee, watching the steam rise in delicate spirals and thinking about his daughter. Sarah had asked him that morning why he looked sad. He told her he was just tired, that grown-ups got tired sometimes, and she'd hugged him with that unself-conscious fierceness that only 7-year-olds could manage. You work too hard, Daddy, she'd said seriously. You should rest more. I will, sweetheart. I promise. Another lie to add to the collection. All right. Ryan set down his cup with enough force to make the porcelain ring. New approach. We stop trying to fix the algorithm and start over. Completely. Build a new routing system from scratch using the backup infrastructure. It'll take time, but 18 months minimum, Marcus interrupted. And that's if everything goes perfectly, which it won't. Meanwhile, we still have the immediate crisis. Ships are still receiving contradictory commands. The network is still bleeding money. So we ground the fleet manually like David suggested. Take the financial hit. Use the time to rebuild properly. David shook his head. Ryan, grounding the entire fleet isn't like parking cars in a garage. These are autonomous vessels spread across every major shipping route on the planet. The logistics alone would take weeks to coordinate, and that's assuming nothing goes catastrophically wrong in the interim. We could have ships running out of fuel in international waters, cargo spoiling, environmental disasters if any of them malfunction near sensitive areas. Then
what the hell do you suggest?
Ryan's voice rose. Because I'm running out of options and patience simultaneously. The door to the private lounge opened again. Ryan spun around, ready to unleash his frustration on whoever had interrupted this time, but it was just the waitress again. She looked even more nervous than before, her hands clasped in front of her like a student called before the principal. What now? Ryan demanded.
Sir, I'm really sorry to bother you again. Her voice was barely above a whisper. But I might... This is going to sound crazy. Ryan waited. Everyone at the table had turned to look at her. She took a breath. I think there might be an error in your geometric model. The silence was absolute. Then Marcus laughed. It was a short, sharp bark of disbelief. I'm sorry, what? The routing algorithm. The waitress pointed at the holographic display with a trembling hand. If I'm seeing this correctly, and I might not be, but it looks like the system is using a Euclidean framework for route calculations. But the Earth isn't flat. It's an oblate spheroid. If the AI is trying to optimize routes based on straight-line distances, instead of accounting for the actual curvature of the planet and the distortions that creates at different latitudes, it would explain why the system keeps contradicting itself. The routes that look optimal in the algorithm's framework are actually impossible in three-dimensional space. The silence that followed was even more profound than before. Ryan stared at the waitress like she'd just started speaking ancient Sumerian. Marcus's mouth had fallen open. David looked confused. Jennifer had her pen frozen halfway to her notepad. I'm sorry, Ryan said slowly. Did you actually just say all those words? The waitress's face went from pink to scarlet. I shouldn't have said anything. I'm sorry. I'll go. No. Ryan held up a hand. No, stay exactly where you are. He looked at Marcus. Did what she just said make any sense whatsoever? Marcus was staring at the waitress like she was a ghost. I don't... Wait. He turned to the holographic display, his fingers flying across the tablet as he pulled up different layers of data. Oh my God. What? Ryan moved closer. What is it? She's right. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. She's absolutely right. Look, the algorithm is running calculations using Cartesian coordinates, but it's not properly converting them to account for the Earth's actual geometry. The system thinks it's plotting routes on a flat plane, but the ships are obviously moving across a sphere. That's why every correction creates new problems. We're giving it commands that are geometrically impossible in reality. David stood up. How did we miss this? How did an entire team of engineers miss something this fundamental? Because we didn't build the core architecture, Marcus said, his face pale. We inherited it. The original routing system was developed before Ryan acquired the company. We've been building on top of that foundation for 5 years, adding features, improving efficiency, but we never questioned the underlying geometric framework because it always worked. Until tonight. Ryan turned slowly to face the waitress, who looked like she desperately wanted to disappear into the floor. Who are you? I'm sorry? Your name. Who are you? Evelyn, sir. Evelyn Carter. And where did a waitress learn about oblate spheroids and Cartesian coordinate systems? Evelyn's hands twisted together. I used to work in tech. Before. A long time ago. What kind of tech? It doesn't matter. I'm sorry for interrupting. I should answer the question. She met his eyes for the first time, and Ryan saw something there that surprised him. Not fear, exactly. Resignation, maybe. Like she'd known this conversation was going to happen and had been dreading it. Logistics optimization, she said quietly. Autonomous systems. Route planning for large-scale networks. The room felt like all the oxygen had been sucked out of it. You worked in logistics, Ryan repeated.
Autonomous systems. Route planning. Yes. And now you're a waitress. Yes.
Why? Evelyn's jaw tightened. That's personal. I don't care. Answer the question. Ryan, Jennifer began, but Ryan cut her off with a look. This woman just diagnosed in 30 seconds what 6 Ivy League engineers couldn't figure out in 3 hours, Ryan said, his voice dangerously quiet. So I'm going to ask her again. Why is someone with your background working as a waitress? Evelyn looked at the floor. Things didn't work out. In tech. I had to find other employment.
Things didn't work out, Ryan repeated. That's the explanation? That's all you're getting. The defiance in her voice surprised him. Ryan was used to people either cowering or trying to impress him. This woman was doing neither. She was just tired, defeated in a way that had nothing to do with him. Fine, Ryan said. Different question. Can you fix this? Evelyn looked up sharply. What? The routing system, the geometric model error you identified. Can you fix it?
I don't know. I'd have to see the actual code, understand the full architecture. How long would that take? This isn't... Evelyn shook her head. Mr. Calloway, I appreciate that you're in a difficult situation, but I'm a waitress. I can't just... $100 million. The words fell like stones. Evelyn stared at him. Excuse me?
If you can fix this system tonight, I will pay you $100 million. Ryan pulled out his chair and gestured to it. Sit down. Look at whatever you need to look at. If you solve this problem before my company collapses completely, I will personally write you a check for 9 figures. Do we have a deal? You can't be serious. I'm dead serious. My company is worth $23 billion. $100 million is a rounding error compared to what I'm about to lose if we don't fix this immediately. So yes, I'm absolutely serious. Sit down.
Evelyn didn't move. She was looking at Ryan like he'd lost his mind, and maybe he had. Maybe the stress had finally broken something fundamental in his brain. But as he stood there, watching this shy waitress who'd somehow seen what his expensive engineers couldn't, Ryan felt something he hadn't felt in hours. Hope. Last chance, Ryan said. Sit down and try, or walk away. But if you walk away, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you could have solved it. If you could have earned 9 figures in a single night. If you could have been more than invisible. He saw the words hit her like physical blows. Her face went white, then red, then white again, her hands clenched into fists. You don't know anything about me, she said, her voice shaking. Then prove me wrong. Sit down. For a long moment, nobody moved. The rain continued its assault on the windows. The holographic display continued its cascade of errors. Ryan's empire continued its death spiral. And then, slowly, Evelyn Carter walked to the chair and sat down. She looked at the display for maybe 10 seconds. Then she looked at Ryan. I'll need a napkin and a pen. Ryan almost laughed. Almost. Instead, he pulled a gold Mont Blanc pen from his jacket pocket, a gift from a Saudi prince after a particularly lucrative deal, and grabbed a cloth napkin from the coffee service. Here. Evelyn took both items carefully, like they might explode. She spread the napkin flat on the table, clicked the pen open, and started writing. The first equation appeared in elegant script across the white fabric. Then another. Then a diagram. Then a series of transformations that Ryan couldn't begin to follow. Evelyn wrote quickly but precisely, her hand moving across the napkin like she was composing music. Nobody spoke. Marcus leaned in closer, his eyes tracking her work. David watched with his arms crossed. Jennifer had her phone out, probably recording this surreal moment for posterity. Evelyn filled one side of the napkin and flipped it over without pausing, continuing her calculations on the back. She was murmuring something under her breath. Numbers, variables, formulas. Her whole demeanor had changed. The nervous waitress was gone, replaced by someone focused and confident and completely absorbed in the problem. 3 minutes passed. 4. 5. Then Evelyn set down the pen and looked up at Marcus. Do you see it? Marcus studied the napkin like it was the Rosetta Stone. Ryan watched his CTO's face go through a rapid series of expressions, confusion, then recognition, then something that looked almost like awe. You converted the coordinate system using a modified Lambert projection, Marcus said slowly,
But instead of treating the Earth as a perfect sphere, you're accounting for the equatorial bulge and the polar flattening. And then you're introducing a correction factor that adjusts for the Coriolis effect on moving vessels at different latitudes.
Exactly. Evelyn pointed to a specific equation.
The original algorithm treats every route like it exists in flat space. But ships moving east-west at the equator experience different forces than ships moving north-south near the poles. If you don't account for that, your optimal routes will always be fighting against physical reality. The AI sees the contradiction and starts second-guessing itself, which triggers the cascade.
But how do we implement this? Marcus asked.
We'd have to rebuild the entire routing engine.
No, you wouldn't.
Evelyn flipped the napkin over again and pointed to the other side.
Look, you don't need to rebuild anything. You just need to insert a pre-processing layer that converts the route requests from the AI's Euclidean framework into proper geodesic calculations before they're executed. Think of it as a translator. The AI can keep thinking in flat space, but the translator ensures the actual commands account for the real geometry.
Marcus stared at her, then at the napkin, then at his tablet. His fingers flew across the screen, typing code so fast it looked like he was playing a piano. This could actually work if I can write the pre-processing function to intercept the route commands. He looked up at Ryan, his eyes wide. I need to call the engineering team, right now.
Do it,
Ryan said. Marcus grabbed his phone and practically ran out of the room, already shouting instructions to whoever answered on the other end. David followed him, his own phone pressed to his ear. Jennifer looked at Ryan questioningly, and he nodded. She left too, leaving Ryan alone with the waitress who'd just rewritten the rules. Evelyn sat very still, staring at the napkin covered in her own handwriting. She looked exhausted, drained, like solving the problem had taken something essential out of her.
Why did you help? Ryan asked quietly.
I don't know.
That's not an answer.
Evelyn looked up at him, and Ryan saw something in her eyes that made his chest tighten. Pain, old pain, the kind that had settled into someone's bones so deeply they'd forgotten what it felt like to not hurt.
You said I was invisible, she said softly. You were wrong. I chose to be invisible. There's a difference.
Before Ryan could respond, Marcus burst back into the room, his face flushed with excitement. It's working. We implemented the pre-processing layer and the cascade is already stabilizing. Error rates are dropping across the board. Ryan, it's actually working. Ryan felt something loosen in his chest. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. How long until we're fully operational? Maybe an hour. We need to verify all systems, run safety checks, but the core problem is solved. Marcus turned to Evelyn, and for the first time since Ryan had known him, the brilliant engineer looked humbled. Ma'am, I don't know who you are or where you learned this, but you just saved this company. That solution is... It's beautiful, elegant. I would never have thought of it. Evelyn didn't smile. She just nodded. I'm glad it helped. Ryan pulled out his phone and opened his banking app. What's your account number? What? Your account number. I promised you $100 million. I'm transferring it now. Evelyn stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. I don't want your money. Ryan paused. I'm sorry. I said I don't want it. Keep it. She picked up the napkin with shaking hands, folding it carefully. I just wanted to see if I could still do it. If I could still solve something that mattered. Now I know. That's enough. She turned to leave, but Ryan moved faster, stepping between her and the door. Wait, you just turned down $100 million. Nobody does that. Why? Because I know what happens when people like you owe people like me, Evelyn said, her voice hard. The money comes with strings, obligations, questions. I solved your problem because I could, not because I wanted to be in debt to a billionaire. You wouldn't be in debt to me. It's the opposite. I'd be in debt to you. Same thing. Ryan studied her face, this woman who'd appeared out of nowhere and saved everything with a napkin and a borrowed pen, and he realized he was missing something, some crucial piece of the puzzle that would make this make sense. Who hurt you? He asked. Evelyn's laugh was bitter. Everyone. No one. Does it matter? She tried to step around him, but Ryan didn't move. It matters to me. Why? Because you want to feel better about yourself? Because you want to be the hero who rescues the poor waitress? Evelyn's eyes blazed. I don't need rescuing, Mr. Calloway. I made my choices. I live with them.
and I don't need your money or your pity or whatever this is. Then what do you need? The question hung in the air between them. Ryan watched Evelyn's expression cycle through anger, frustration, and finally something that looked like surrender. To be left alone, she said quietly. That's all I've ever needed. She pushed past him, and this time Ryan let her go. He heard her footsteps in the hallway, quick and light, retreating. The door to the main restaurant swung open and closed. She was gone. Ryan stood in the empty lounge, staring at the space where she'd been, and felt like he'd just lost something important without ever understanding what it was. Behind him, the holographic display flickered. The red error cascades were dissolving, replaced by stable green routing lines. His company was saved. His daughter's future was secure. Everything was going to be fine. So why did he feel like he just made a terrible mistake? Marcus appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. The system's stabilizing faster than expected. We should be fully operational within 30 minutes. Ryan, we did it. Where's the waitress? Gone. What do you mean, gone? Did you get her contact information? We need to… She didn't want anything from us, Ryan interrupted. She solved the problem and left. Marcus looked baffled. But the money, the offer you made, she refused it. She refused $100 million? Apparently. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Who is she? That was the question, wasn't it? Ryan walked to the table and picked up the napkin Evelyn had left behind. Her equations filled both sides in neat, precise handwriting, mathematical poetry that had saved an empire. I don't know, Ryan said, but I'm going to find out. Ryan didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw equations written on cloth and a woman walking away from more money than most people earned in 10 lifetimes. By 6 a.m, he was back in his office on the 47th floor of the Titan building, the napkin sealed in a protective sleeve on his desk like evidence at a crime scene. The city was just starting to wake up below him, delivery trucks and early commuters beginning their routines, oblivious to the fact that a global shipping empire had nearly died and been resurrected in the span of one dinner service. Jennifer knocked and entered without waiting for permission. She'd been with him long enough to know when formality was pointless. The system's been stable for 6 hours, she said, setting a tablet in front of him. All vessels are operating normally. Damage assessment puts the total loss at just under $230 million, which is catastrophic but not fatal. The board doesn't know yet. David convinced them it was planned maintenance. David's a better liar than I gave him credit for. David's terrified you're going to do something reckless. Jennifer sat down across from him. So am I, if I'm being honest. You have that look. What look? The one you get right before you make a decision that everyone tells you is insane, and you do it anyway because you're convinced you're right. She paused. What did you find on her? Ryan had spent 3 hours after Evelyn left running background searches that should have been impossible for a civilian to access, but were surprisingly easy when you had the right contacts and zero ethical boundaries. What he'd found had only raised more questions. Evelyn Marie Carter, he said, pulling up a file on the tablet. Age 30, born in Portland, full scholarship to MIT, graduated top of her class with degrees in applied mathematics and computer science. Published her first paper on autonomous logistics optimization at 22. By 24, she was being called the next great mind in the field. Jennifer leaned forward. So what happened? She disappeared. Ryan scrolled through the timeline. 6 years ago, she was working for a company called Meridian Solutions. They were developing next-generation routing algorithms for autonomous cargo systems. Evelyn was the lead architect. Then the company was acquired by a venture capital firm, and 3 months later, Evelyn was gone. No forwarding address, no social media, no presence in the tech world at all. It's like she just evaporated. People don't just evaporate. She did. I can't find employment records, tax returns, nothing, until 18 months ago when she started working at Aurelius. As a waitress. As a waitress, Ryan confirmed, making minimum wage plus tips, serving food to people who wouldn't notice her if she set herself on fire. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Did you try asking the restaurant? Manager said she's reliable, quiet, never causes problems. Shows up on time, does her job, goes home.
Nobody knows anything about her personal life. She doesn't socialize with the other staff. One of the bartenders said she thought maybe Evelyn was running from something, but that's just speculation. Maybe she wants to be left alone, like she said. Ryan looked up sharply. You think I should drop this? I think she solved your problem and asked for nothing in return. That's a gift, Ryan. Don't ruin it by making it about you. It's not about me, isn't it? Jennifer stood. Look, I get it. You're curious. She's brilliant and mysterious, and she saved the company, but she also made it very clear she doesn't want your attention or your money. Maybe respect that. She left before he could argue, which was probably wise. Ryan turned back to the file, staring at a photograph from Evelyn's MIT graduation. She looked younger, happier, like someone who believed the world had space for her. The woman in that photo bore almost no resemblance to the exhausted waitress who'd written miracles on a napkin. 6 years. Something had happened 6 years ago that had broken her badly enough that she'd walked away from everything she'd built. And Ryan needed to know what. His phone buzzed. Sarah's morning video call, right on schedule. He answered, and his daughter's face filled the screen, her hair still messy from sleep. Morning, Daddy. Did you fix your work thing? Yeah, baby, it's fixed.
Good. Emma's making pancakes, the ones with chocolate chips. I told her you like blueberries better, but she said chocolate chips are more fun. Emma's right. Chocolate chips are definitely more fun. Sarah grinned, and Ryan felt the familiar ache in his chest. She looked so much like her mother, it sometimes physically hurt to look at her. Same smile, same eyes, same way of tilting her head when she was thinking. Are you coming to get me today? Sarah asked. After school. We can get dinner wherever you want. Even the place with the really good mac and cheese? Especially the place with the really good mac and cheese. They talked for a few more minutes about nothing important and everything essential. When she hung up to go eat her chocolate chip pancakes, Ryan sat in the silence of his office and thought about the things we lose and the things we protect, and how sometimes they're the same thing. Then, he made a phone call he probably shouldn't have made. 3 hours later, Ryan was sitting in a coffee shop in Brooklyn that looked like it had been decorated by someone who really believed exposed brick and Edison bulbs constituted a personality. Across from him sat a woman named Patricia Henley, who'd worked with Evelyn at Meridian Solutions, and had been surprisingly willing to meet a stranger asking questions about her former colleague. I haven't thought about Evelyn in years, Patricia said, stirring sugar into her coffee. When you called, it was like hearing from a ghost. You two were close? As close as Evelyn let anyone get, which wasn't very. She was friendly enough, but private, like she was always holding something back. Patricia smiled sadly. Brilliant, though, absolutely brilliant. The rest of us were playing checkers while she was playing three-dimensional chess. What happened at Meridian? Patricia's smile disappeared. You said on the phone you were a potential investor looking into her background. That's not true, is it? Ryan considered lying, decided against it. No, I'm Ryan Calloway. I run Titan Horizon Systems. I know who you are. Patricia set down her cup carefully. Why are you asking about Evelyn? She helped me solve a problem last night, a big one. I want to understand who she is. Why? Because people who can do what she did don't end up serving coffee in restaurants. Something happened to her, and I think it's connected to Meridian. Patricia studied him for a long moment. If I tell you this, what are you going to do with the information? I don't know yet. That's honest, at least. She sighed. Evelyn created something at Meridian, a routing algorithm that was years ahead of anything else in the industry. Revolutionary doesn't even cover it. The system could optimize cargo routes across multiple transport modes simultaneously while accounting for real-time variables that other systems couldn't even process. It was going to change everything. So what went wrong? The company got bought out by a VC firm called Blackstone Ventures. You know the type. Ruthless, aggressive, only care about quarterly returns. They took one look at Evelyn's work and saw dollar signs. They wanted to commercialize it immediately, cut corners on testing, license it to the highest bidder regardless of how it would be used. Let me guess, Ryan said. Evelyn objected. She did more than object. She refused to sign off on the deployment, said the system needed another year of testing minimum, that rushing it to market was dangerous and unethical. The VCs didn't care. They owned the patents, owned the code, owned everything.
They told Evelyn she could either get on board or get out. So she got out. Patricia shook her head. She tried to stop them, went to the press, tried to blow the whistle on what they were doing. But Blackstone had better lawyers and deeper pockets. They buried her, destroyed her credibility, made her look like a disgruntled employee trying to sabotage the company out of spite. By the time they were done, no one in the industry would touch her. Ryan felt something cold settle in his stomach. What happened to the algorithm? They deployed it anyway. 6 months later, there was an incident. An autonomous cargo ship using Evelyn's system had a catastrophic routing failure in the North Sea. Crashed into a commercial fishing vessel. 12 people died. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too warm. Ryan loosened his tie. That made the news. I remember that accident. The investigation concluded it was a software malfunction. It was Evelyn's software, or at least it was based on her original work. But Blackstone had modified it so extensively to cut costs and speed deployment that it barely resembled what she'd created. The investigation found that the system had been pushed to market without proper testing, exactly like Evelyn warned. But by then, she was already gone, disappeared completely. I tried to reach out after the accident to see if she was okay, but her phone was disconnected. Email bounced back.
It was like she'd never existed.
Ryan sat back in his chair, processing. Did anyone at Blackstone face consequences? Are you kidding? They paid some fines, issued some statements about improved safety protocols, and moved on. The executives probably got bonuses that year. Patricia's voice was bitter. That's how it works for people like them. The little people die, and the people at the top write checks and pretend to care. And Evelyn? Evelyn lost everything. Her career, her reputation, her life's work. All because she tried to do the right thing. Patricia looked at Ryan directly. So, if you're asking about her because you want to use her somehow, because you see another opportunity to exploit someone brilliant and desperate, you should know that ship has already sailed. She's been used enough. Ryan thought about Evelyn turning down $100 million, about her saying she just wanted to be left alone, about the look in her eyes when he'd called her invisible. I'm not trying to use her, he said quietly. I'm trying to understand her. Why? Because last night she saved my company, and she didn't have to. She could have walked past that table and never said a word, but she didn't. She helped me, even though people like me destroyed her life. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Maybe she helped you because she's still the same person she always was. Someone who solves problems because she can't help herself, even when it costs her everything. Ryan left the coffee shop with more questions than answers, and a growing sense that he'd stepped into something much deeper than a simple curiosity. He spent the rest of the day in meetings, fielding questions about the previous night's maintenance, assuring board members and investors that everything was fine, that Titan Horizon was stronger than ever. He was lying, and he knew it. The system was stable now, but only because of a patch written by someone who wasn't on his payroll, who shouldn't have even known about the problem. If Evelyn could spot the flaw in 30 seconds, what else was wrong with the system? What other catastrophic failures were hiding in code written by people who'd prioritized speed over safety? By 7 that evening, Ryan was standing outside Aurelius again. The restaurant didn't open for another hour, but he could see movement through the windows, staff preparing for service, someone arranging flowers on tables. He tried the door, locked. He knocked. A hostess he didn't recognize opened it, looking annoyed. We're not open yet. Reservations start at 8. I'm looking for one of your waitresses, Evelyn Carter. Is she expecting you? No. The hostess's expression shifted from annoyed to suspicious. Then you can come back during business hours and request her section like a normal person. It's important. I'm sure it is. Come back at 8. The door closed in his face with finality. Ryan stood on the sidewalk, rain starting to fall again, and felt absurd. What was he doing? Hunting down a woman who'd explicitly told him she wanted to be left alone? Jennifer was right. This was about him, not Evelyn. About his need to understand, to control, to fix things. He was about to leave when a side door opened and someone emerged carrying trash bags. Ryan recognized her immediately, even with her hair down and wearing a coat over her uniform. Evelyn. She stopped, trash bag still in hand, and turned slowly. When she saw him, her expression went carefully blank. Mr. Calloway? I wanted to talk to you. I'm working. I can wait. I finish at midnight. I'll wait until midnight. Evelyn set down the trash bags and crossed her arms. Why are you here? Because you walked away from $100 million and I need to know why. I told you why. No, you gave me a non-answer designed to make me go away. It didn't work. Ryan took a step closer. I know about Meridian, about Blackstone Ventures, about the accident. He watched the color drain from her face. Her arms tightened around herself. You investigated me. I wanted to understand. So you invaded my privacy. I needed to know who you were. No. Evelyn's voice shook. You needed to feel in control. You needed to solve the puzzle because that's what you do. You're a billionaire CEO. You don't accept mystery. You don't accept being told no. So you dug into my past without my permission because what I wanted didn't matter as much as what you wanted. Every word hit like a punch. Ryan opened his mouth to defend himself and realized he couldn't. She was right. Everything she was saying was absolutely right. I'm sorry, he said. I don't want your apology. Then what do you want? I want you to leave me alone. The words came out louder than she probably intended. A couple walking past glanced over curiously. Evelyn lowered her voice. I left that world behind for a reason. I don't want to go back. I don't want to be reminded of what I lost or what happened or any of it. I just want to do my job and go home and live my life without billionaires showing up, demanding explanations. Your life, Ryan repeated, working at a restaurant, making minimum wage, pretending you're not one of the most brilliant people in the industry. It's my choice. It's a waste. It's my waste. Evelyn's eyes blazed. Do you know what it's like? To build something beautiful, something that could have helped people, and watch it get twisted into something that kills? To have your life's work turned into a weapon because people like you only care about profit? I'm not. You are exactly like them. She was shaking now, years of buried rage finally surfacing. You built your empire on technology you didn't create. You got rich while the actual innovators got crushed. And now you want to what? Rescue me? Give me a job? Make yourself feel better about benefiting from a system that destroys people like me? Your algorithm, Ryan said quietly. The one Blackstone corrupted and deployed. Is that what my company is using? The question hung between them. Evelyn's expression shifted from anger to something worse. Recognition. Horror. I need to go, she said. Evelyn, I need to go. She grabbed the trash bags and practically ran to the dumpster, throwing them in with more force than necessary. When she turned back, her face was carefully composed, but Ryan could see the cracks. Stay away from me, Mr. Calloway. Whatever you think this is, whatever you think you're doing, just stop. You can't fix this. You can't fix me. Some things are just broken. She disappeared back inside before he could respond. Ryan stood in the rain, water soaking through his expensive suit, and thought about systems built on stolen foundations and the people who got crushed in the gears. He went home that night and couldn't eat the dinner his chef had prepared. Instead, he sat in his study with a glass of whiskey. He didn't drink and the napkin in its protective sleeve and tried to understand how everything had become so complicated. His phone rang. Marcus. We have a problem, his CTO said without preamble. The pre-processing layer Evelyn designed. It's working perfectly, almost too perfectly. Explain. I've been studying her solution, the geometric framework she created. Ryan, it's not just fixing our current system, it's revealing fundamental flaws in the entire architecture, problems we didn't even know existed. How bad? Bad enough that if we'd kept operating without her correction for another few months, we would have had failures cascading across the entire network. What happened last night wasn't a one-time glitch. It was a symptom of a much deeper problem. Ryan closed his eyes. The core algorithm, the one we inherited when I acquired the company 5 years ago. Where did it come from originally? I'd have to dig through the acquisition paperwork. Why? Just check. And Marcus, I want a full audit of every system we're running, everything. If there are more problems hiding in the code, I want to know before they kill someone. He hung up and looked at the napkin again. All those elegant equations written by someone who understood not just the mathematics, but the consequences. Someone who'd watched her work become something terrible and had spent 6 years punishing herself for it. Some things are just broken, she'd said. Maybe. But Ryan hadn't built a multi-billion-dollar empire by accepting that things couldn't be fixed. He'd built it by finding solutions that other people said were impossible. He picked up his phone and made another call. "Jennifer, I need you to set up a meeting." "With who?" "Everyone who was involved in the Meridian acquisition. The VCs, the lawyers, anyone who touched it. I want names, contact information, and I want it by morning." "Ryan, what are you doing?" "Something I should have done 6 years ago." He paused. "Actually, no. Something someone should have done 6 years ago. I'm just the one doing it now." "You're going after Blackstone." "I'm going after everyone who destroyed Evelyn Carter's life and got away with it. And then I'm going to give her the option to destroy mine." "That's insane." "Probably. Do it anyway." He hung up before she could argue further. Outside his window, Manhattan glittered like it always did, indifferent to the dramas playing out in its towers and restaurants and rain-soaked streets. Somewhere in that constellation of light, a brilliant woman was probably finishing her shift, going home to whatever small apartment she could afford on a waitress's salary, believing that she deserved this diminished life because she'd tried to do the right thing and failed. Ryan Calloway had made a lot of mistakes in his 32 years. He'd been arrogant, ruthless, sometimes cruel. He'd built an empire while ignoring the human costs. He'd mocked a waitress in front of a room full of people because she dared to look at his problems. But he could learn. He could change. And he could start by tearing down the people who taught him that power meant never having to say you were wrong. The napkin sat on his desk, equations glowing softly in the lamplight, a roadmap to salvation written by someone who'd given up on being saved. Ryan picked up his whiskey and finally took a drink. Some things were broken, but some things could still be fixed if you were willing to burn everything else down to do it. The information Jennifer compiled arrived at 4 in the morning, transmitted to Ryan's tablet while he sat in his daughter's room watching her sleep. Sarah had kicked off her blankets again, sprawled across her bed like she was making snow angels in her dreams. He pulled the covers back over her gently, the way he'd done every night for 7 years, and wondered what kind of man he was teaching her to become by example. The file was extensive. Blackstone Ventures had dissolved 2 years ago after a series of failed investments in an SEC investigation that went nowhere despite evidence of fraud. The partners had scattered like roaches when the lights came on. Most had landed at other firms, still making deals, still destroying lives in pursuit of quarterly earnings. But one name jumped out at him. Theodore Vance, the lead partner on the Meridian acquisition, currently a senior managing director at Helix Capital Group, one of the largest venture firms in New York. Ryan knew Vance slightly. They'd been at the same charity gala last year, had shared brief pleasantries about market conditions and tax policy. Vance had seemed perfectly pleasant, charming even. The kind of man who told jokes at dinner parties and donated to children's hospitals and slept soundly despite the lives he'd ruined. Ryan pulled out his phone and typed a message. "Theodore, Ryan Calloway. We should talk. Breakfast tomorrow. My office. 8 sharp. Non-negotiable." He sent it before he could reconsider. The response came back almost immediately, which meant Vance had been awake too. People at that level rarely slept well. Too many secrets, too many bodies buried. "Ryan. Intriguing. I'll be there." Ryan set down his phone and looked at his daughter again. Sarah's favorite stuffed animal, a threadbare rabbit she'd named Dr. Whiskers for reasons she could never adequately explain, had fallen onto the floor. He picked it up and tucked it beside her. "I'm going to try to be better," he whispered to the sleeping child. "I don't know if I can, but I'm going to try." Sarah didn't answer, lost in whatever world 7-year-olds visited when they closed their eyes. Ryan envied her that innocence, the ability to believe that problems had solutions and that the people in charge were fundamentally good. He'd believed that once too, before he'd built an empire and learned what it actually cost. Theodore Vance arrived at Ryan's office at precisely 8 o'clock, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Evelyn made in 6 months. He was in his early 50s, fit in the way wealthy men were fit, with perfect teeth and a handshake that conveyed confidence without aggression. "Ryan? Good to see you." Vance settled into the chair across from Ryan's desk like he owned it. "I have to admit, your message intrigued me. Not often someone as successful as you reaches out with that level of urgency." "I want to talk about Meridian Solutions." The smile on Vance's face didn't waver, but something shifted behind his eyes. "That's ancient history. Blackstone dissolved years ago." "I'm aware.
I'm interested in the history anyway.
Specific aspect, or are we taking a leisurely stroll down memory lane? Evelyn Carter. Now the smile did falter, just for a second. Vance recovered quickly, but Ryan had seen it. Recognition. Calculation. I'm not sure I recall that name. Yes, you do. She was the lead architect on the autonomous routing system Blackstone acquired. The one you rushed to market. The one that failed and killed 12 people. Vance's expression went carefully neutral. That accident was thoroughly investigated. Multiple agencies concluded it was an unfortunate confluence of factors. No individual or company was found to be criminally negligent. No one was found criminally negligent because you had better lawyers than the families of the dead fishermen. That's not the same as being innocent. Ryan. Vance leaned forward slightly. I'm not sure what you think you know, or why you're bringing this up now, but I'd advise caution. Meridian was a complicated situation. A lot of parties involved, a lot of competing interests. If you start making accusations without understanding the full context,
she tried to stop you, Evelyn. She told you the system wasn't ready. She refused to sign off on deployment, and you destroyed her career to silence her.
That's a very dramatic interpretation of events. Is it inaccurate? Vance sat back, studying Ryan with the kind of cold assessment that venture capitalists specialized in. People were just numbers to men like him, assets or liabilities. Evelyn had been a liability, so she'd been eliminated. Simple mathematics. Dr. Carter was a brilliant engineer, Vance said finally, but brilliant people can sometimes be difficult. She had concerns about the timeline, yes. We addressed those concerns. When she continued to object despite our assurances, it became clear that she wasn't a good fit for the company's direction. We parted ways. That happens in business. You blacklisted her. We shared our experience with other firms. That's standard practice. You ruined her life. We protected our investment. Again, standard practice. Vance's voice hardened. Ryan, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've built companies, saved companies, and yes, occasionally had to make difficult decisions about personnel. Dr. Carter was a casualty of a business decision. It's unfortunate, but it happens. If you've brought me here to relitigate something that was settled years ago, you're wasting both our time. Ryan opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. He slid it across the desk. This is a full forensic audit of Titan Horizon's core routing algorithm, the one I acquired 5 years ago when I bought Techlogis Systems. Do you know where Techlogis got their algorithm? Vance opened the folder, scanning the documents. Ryan watched understanding dawn on his face. Meridian, Vance said quietly. Meridian. Specifically, a modified version of Evelyn Carter's original work. The same work you corrupted and deployed prematurely. The same work that killed 12 people. Ryan leaned forward. And I've been running my entire company on it. 2,700 autonomous vessels. Billions of dollars in cargo. Thousands of employees. All dependent on a system built on a foundation that was never properly tested. That system has been operational for years without major incident. Until 3 nights ago, when it nearly destroyed my company in a cascading failure that none of my engineers could solve. Do you know who fixed it? Evelyn Carter. A waitress. Because she understood the system better than anyone because she built it. And when I tried to pay her, tried to thank her, she walked away because people like you taught her that this industry destroys anyone who tries to do the right thing. Vance closed the folder carefully. What do you want, Ryan? I want you to admit what you did. That's not going to happen. Then I'm going to make it happen. Ryan pulled out his phone and placed it on the desk. I have 3 investigative journalists ready to start digging into the Meridian acquisition. I have lawyers prepared to file wrongful termination suits on Evelyn's behalf. I have enough money and enough anger to make this the biggest scandal the venture capital world has seen in a decade. And I don't care if it burns my company to the ground in the process. You're bluffing. Am I? My company almost collapsed because of your corruption. My daughter almost lost everything because I built an empire on technology that was fundamentally broken. You think I won't torch it all to make sure you face consequences? Vance stood up abruptly. You have no idea what you're doing. You think you can just decide to be righteous after benefiting from the system for years. You're not some crusading hero, Ryan. You're just another billionaire trying to feel better about himself. And if you come after me, I will destroy you the same way we destroyed her. I have resources you can't imagine. Connections in places that matter. You want a war? I'll give you one that ends with you losing everything. Get out of my office. Excuse me? You heard me? Get out. And Theodore? Ryan smiled, and there was nothing pleasant in it. I recorded this entire conversation, audio and video, along with your admission that you destroyed Evelyn Carter's career as retaliation for her ethical objections. I wonder how that's going to play with your current investors. Vance's face went white. That's illegal. New York is a one-party consent state, but recording a private business meeting without disclosure is perfectly legal as long as one party consents. I consented. I'm the one party. Check with your lawyers if you don't believe me. Ryan stood. Now get out before I have security escort you. Vance left without another word. His composure finally cracked. Ryan watched him go and felt no satisfaction. Just exhaustion. He just started a war with someone who had the resources and the ruthlessness to fight back, and he wasn't sure he'd survive it. His phone rang. Jennifer. Please tell me you didn't just threaten Theodore Vance. How did you know? Because his assistant just called trying to set up an emergency meeting with our board of directors. Ryan, what did you do? I told him the truth, that we're going to expose what happened at Meridian. Without talking to Evelyn first, without getting her consent? Ryan, that's her story, her trauma. You can't just weaponize it because you're feeling guilty. The words hit harder than Vance's threats had. Jennifer was right. Again. He'd been so focused on his own need to fix things, to make things right, that he'd forgotten the person at the center of it all. I need to talk to her, Ryan said. You think? He hung up and grabbed his coat. It was 9 a.m. Evelyn wouldn't be at the restaurant yet. He'd gotten her address from the background check he'd run, another invasion of privacy to add to the growing list. But he needed to tell her what he'd done before it exploded in both their faces. The address led him to a neighborhood in Queens that real estate agents euphemistically called emerging. The buildings were old but clean, the kind of place where people worked hard and minded their business. Evelyn's apartment was on the 3rd floor of a walk-up that smelled like cooking and old carpet. Ryan knocked. No answer. He knocked again. She's not home. An elderly woman had emerged from the apartment across the hall, regarding Ryan with suspicion. Left about an hour ago with her mother. Her mother? Hospital visit. She goes every Tuesday and Thursday. You a friend of hers? Something like that. The woman snorted. You don't look like her kind of friend. You look like trouble in an expensive suit. Which hospital? Why should I tell you? Ryan pulled out his wallet and extracted $500 bills. Because I need to talk to her, and it's important. The woman looked at the money, then at Ryan, then back at the money. Mount Sinai, Queens, but if you hurt that girl, I know people. Don't think the fancy suit will protect you. I'm not going to hurt her. I'm trying to help. That's what they all say. But she took the money. Mount Sinai. Queens was a maze of corridors and waiting rooms filled with the unique smell of hospitals everywhere, antiseptic and fear and too much hope. Ryan asked at the front desk, claimed to be a family friend, and got directed to the 4th floor. He found Evelyn sitting in a small room next to a hospital bed. The woman in the bed was thin, pale, connected to various monitors that beeped softly. She had Evelyn's bone structure, Evelyn's eyes, but illness had hollowed her out until she looked like a ghost of herself. Evelyn looked up when Ryan appeared in the doorway, and the expression on her face went from surprise to anger in half a second. How did you find me? We need to talk. Get out. Evelyn, I said get out. Her voice rose, and the woman in the bed stirred slightly. Evelyn immediately softened her tone, glancing at her mother with concern. You can't be here. You need to leave right now. Ryan stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. I did something you need to know about before it becomes public. I don't care what you did. I confronted Theodore Vance this morning about Meridian, about what they did to you. Evelyn went very still. You what? I told him I know what happened, that I'm going to expose the whole thing, the rushed deployment, the accident, how they destroyed your career to cover it up, all of it. You had no right. Evelyn stood up, her hand shaking. That's my life, my story. You can't just decide to air it out because you're feeling guilty about running a company built on stolen technology. I know. Jennifer said the same thing,
and you're both right. But I also can't unknow what I know. I can't pretend that 12 people didn't die because of corruption and greed. I can't keep running a company on a foundation that was built by destroying you. So this is about your conscience, your need to feel like a good person. This is about making sure what happened to you doesn't happen to anyone else. Liar? Evelyn's voice was sharp. This is about control. You're a billionaire CEO. You're used to fixing things, solving problems, making the world bend to your will. And I'm just another problem that needs solving, aren't I? The tragic genius who fell from grace. You can rescue me and feel like a hero and sleep better at night knowing you're one of the good ones. That's not... Yes, it is. She was crying now, angry tears that she wiped away furiously. Do you know what it's like to watch everything you built get twisted into something terrible? To know that your work killed people and there's nothing you can do about it? I spent 6 years trying to disappear, trying to make myself small enough that I couldn't hurt anyone else. And then you showed up and dragged me back into this, and now you want to what? Put me on display? Make me a symbol? I won't do it. I won't be your redemption story. The woman in the bed coughed softly. Evelyn immediately turned to her, adjusting the pillows, checking the monitors. Ryan saw the gentleness in her movements, the practiced care of someone who'd been doing this for a long time. How long has she been sick? Ryan asked quietly. 4 years, stage 4 lung cancer. She never smoked a day in her life. Evelyn's voice was flat. Treatment costs about $15,000 a month. Insurance covers maybe half. I work 3 jobs to make up the difference. This is why I didn't take your money, Mr. Calloway. Because if I take it, if I go back to that world, I become someone who can be bought, someone who can be used, and I won't do that again, not even for this. Ryan looked at the monitors, the IV bags, the woman who'd raised someone brilliant and kind and was now dying slowly in a hospital room that smelled like recycled air. He thought about his own daughter, about what he'd sacrificed to keep her safe. I'm sorry, he said. Not the corporate sorry. Not the empty platitude sorry. Really, genuinely sorry. For investigating you without permission. For confronting Vance without asking you first. For making decisions about your life like I had the right. You were right about all of it. I'm trying to feel like a good person. I'm trying to fix things I can't fix. And I did it all without thinking about what you actually wanted. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was tired. What did Vance say when you confronted him? He denied everything at first, then he threatened me. Said he'd destroy me the same way they destroyed you. He will, you know. He has the resources and the connections. You think you're powerful, but there are levels of power you don't understand. Vance operates in those levels. I don't care. You should. You have a daughter, which is exactly why I care. Sarah's growing up watching me, learning from me. And if I teach her that the way to succeed is to ignore corruption, to benefit from systems that destroy people, to only care about consequences when they affect us directly, Ryan trailed off. I don't want her to become that person. So you're doing this for her. I'm doing this because it's right, or at least I'm trying to. I'm probably going to mess it up spectacularly, but I'm trying. Evelyn's mother stirred again, her eyes opening slightly. Evie? Who's that? No one, Mom. Just someone from work. Go back to sleep. He sounds nice. You should be nice to nice people. Her eyes drifted closed again. Evelyn smiled despite herself, a small, sad smile that made her look younger. She's on a lot of medication. Says whatever comes into her head. My daughter's the same way. No filter. Last week she told our neighbor that his toupee looked like a dead squirrel. Was she wrong? Not even a little bit. They both laughed, quiet and brief, and for a moment the tension in the room eased. Then Evelyn's expression grew serious again. If you're really going to do this, if you're really going to go after Vance and Blackstone and all of it, you need to understand what you're starting. They will come for you with everything they have, your company, your reputation, your family. Nothing is off limits. And they're very good at making people disappear. They made you disappear. Exactly. And I had nothing to lose. You have everything to lose. Ryan thought about his penthouse, his empire, his perfectly curated life. Then he thought about sitting in a restaurant while his company collapsed and watching a waitress solve the impossible because she still believed in doing the right thing even after the world had punished her for it.
Then I guess I better make sure it's worth it, he said. What happened at Meridian, the accident, all of it. If I'm going to burn everything down, I need to know the whole story. Not the version I got from Patricia or the investigation reports. The real story. From you. Evelyn looked at her mother, at the monitors, at the small room that had become too familiar. Then she looked at Ryan. It started 7 years ago, she said. I was 23 and stupid enough to believe that being brilliant meant I could change the world. She told him everything. The initial development of the routing algorithm, the breakthrough that had gotten her noticed, the acquisition by Blackstone. How excited she'd been at first. How she'd thought that finally having real resources meant she could perfect the system, make it better than she'd ever dreamed. Then the pressure started. The VCs wanted deployment in 6 months instead of 2 years. They wanted to cut testing phases, eliminate redundancies, anything that slowed down the path to profit. Evelyn had pushed back, explained the risks, showed them simulations of what could go wrong. They'd smiled and nodded and ignored every word she said. I should have quit, Evelyn said. The moment I realized they didn't care about safety, I should have walked away. But I convinced myself I could protect the project from the inside, that I could stall, could sneak in extra testing, could somehow make it work despite them. She laughed bitterly. Arrogance. I was just as arrogant as they were. I thought I was smarter than everyone else, that I could outsmart people who'd been playing these games for decades. The deployment had been a disaster from the start, systems failing in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Evelyn working 100-hour weeks trying to patch problems that stemmed from fundamental architectural flaws. The VCs celebrating early revenue while she watched the whole thing crumble. Then the accident. A cargo vessel in the North Sea receiving contradictory routing commands. The AI making decisions that violated basic physics. The ship changing course directly into the path of a fishing boat that had a dozen men on board. I was in a meeting when it happened, Evelyn said. Some presentation about Q2 projections. My phone kept buzzing. I ignored it. When I finally looked, she closed her eyes. 12 men. Some of them had families, kids, and they died because I wasn't strong enough to stop what I knew was wrong. It wasn't your fault. Yes, it was. Not legally, maybe. But morally? I knew the system was dangerous. I knew people could die. And I didn't stop it. I tried, but trying isn't the same as succeeding. Those men are still dead. The people who pushed the deployment, who ignored your warnings, are also responsible. But that doesn't absolve me. We were all responsible. The difference is they slept fine afterward, and I couldn't sleep for 2 years. Evelyn wiped her eyes. After the accident, I tried to go public. Thought if I could just explain what had happened, show people the corners that had been cut, someone would care. Someone would hold Blackstone accountable. But Blackstone's lawyers had been faster. They'd painted Evelyn as a disgruntled employee, someone bitter about being pushed out, making wild accusations to damage the company. They'd leaked selective emails showing her pushing back on timelines, framed it as her being difficult and unreasonable. By the time she could respond, the narrative was set. The tech industry is small, Evelyn said. Everyone knows everyone. Once Blackstone was done with me, I couldn't get hired anywhere, not because I wasn't qualified, because I was toxic. A whistleblower. Someone who couldn't be trusted to put the company first. She'd burned through her savings fighting legal battles she couldn't win. Her mother had gotten sick. The medical bills had piled up. Eventually, Evelyn had run out of options and pride and energy. She'd taken the first job she could get that didn't require references. Waiting tables, being invisible. Some days that's all I can handle, she said. Being no one, solving no problems, just serving food and going home and not being responsible for anything except getting the order right. Ryan sat with the story, feeling the weight of it. 12 dead men. A brilliant woman broken. A system that rewarded corruption and punished integrity. And his company built on top of all of it like a monument to everything wrong with the industry. I'm going to make this right, he said. You can't make this right. Those men are still dead. My career is still destroyed. My mother is still dying. You can't fix any of it. Maybe not. But I can make sure Vance and everyone like him faces consequences. I can make sure what happened to you is public record. And I can offer you something. I told you I don't want your money. Not money. A choice. Ryan leaned forward. Titan Horizon is built on your work. Corrupted, modified, but fundamentally yours. You created something beautiful, and they turned it into a weapon. I want you to fix it, not patch it, not work around the problems. Rebuild the entire system the way you originally envisioned it, the way it should have been built from the start. You want me to work for you. I want you to take over the entire technology division. Full authority, complete control. Build the system right this time. Make it what you always meant it to be. And when you're done, when it's perfect and safe and everything you dreamed, we'll make it open source. Free. Available to anyone who wants to use it properly. Evelyn stared at him. You're insane. Probably. But I'm also serious. My company is worth billions because of your work. The least I can do is let you finish it correctly. And if I say no, then I respect that. I'll still go after Vance. I'll still expose Meridian, but I'll do it without you. This is your choice, Evelyn, not mine. For once in this whole mess, you get to decide. Evelyn's mother coughed again, harder this time. Evelyn was immediately at her side, adjusting oxygen, checking vitals. The monitors beeped steadily, measuring a life that was slowly running out. I need to think about it, Evelyn said finally. Take all the time you need. No, I mean, I need to think about it right now, for 5 minutes, alone. Can you wait outside? Ryan nodded and left the room. He stood in the hallway next to a vending machine that was missing half its selections and watched nurses move past with the tired efficiency of people working double shifts. His phone buzzed constantly. Messages from Jennifer, from board members, from lawyers, everyone wanting to know what he was doing, why he was starting fights he couldn't win. He ignored all of them. 5 minutes later, Evelyn emerged from the room. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. I'll do it, she said. On 3 conditions. Name them. 1. Complete control of the technology division. You don't override my decisions. You don't question my timeline. You don't cut corners to save money or speed deployment. When I say it's ready, not before. Agreed. 2. Every employee who works on this project gets paid fairly. Not startup equity promises. Not deferred compensation. Real money. The engineers, the testers, the support staff. Everyone who touches this system gets compensated properly for their work. Done. 3. When this is finished, when the system is operational and safe, you establish a foundation. Independent, properly funded, dedicated to supporting engineers and developers who try to blow the whistle on unsafe practices. Legal support, financial assistance, job placement, everything I didn't have. So the next person who tries to do the right thing doesn't end up serving coffee for 6 years. Ryan extended his hand. You have my word. All 3 conditions. No negotiations. Evelyn looked at his hand for a long moment before shaking it. Her grip was firm, certain. The grip of someone who decided to stop hiding. I'm going to need access to everything, she said. Every line of code, every system specification, every decision that's been made in the last 5 years. And I'm going to need to hire my own team, people I trust, people who won't cut corners. Whatever you need. This is going to cost you, not just money, reputation. When I rebuild the system, when I document everything that's wrong with the current architecture, people are going to ask questions about why you were running it in the first place. Let them ask. Your stock price is going to tank. I have enough money. Vance is going to come after you harder than you can imagine. I'm counting on it. Ryan smiled grimly. Let him come. I'll be ready. Evelyn studied his face, searching for something. Sincerity, maybe? Or madness? Possibly both. Why are you really doing this? She asked. And don't give me the line about your daughter. That's part of it, but it's not all of it. Ryan thought about the question, about all the easy answers he could give. Then he decided on the truth. Because 3 nights ago, I watched the smartest people money could buy fail to solve a problem, and then I watched a waitress solve it in 5 minutes with a napkin. And I realized that everything I've built, everything I thought made me successful, was actually just me benefiting from a system designed to crush people like you. I can't unknow that. I can't go back to pretending it's fine. He paused. And maybe I'm doing this because I want to believe that people can change, that we're not just trapped by the decisions we've already made, that sometimes you get a chance to burn everything down and build something better in the ashes. That's either very brave or very stupid. I'm hoping for brave, but I'll settle for stupid if it works. Evelyn almost smiled. Almost. When do we start? Tomorrow. 9 a.m. My office. Bring whatever you need. Ryan turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. Your mother's medical bills, I'm covering them, not as part of the deal, not as payment, just because it's right. She shouldn't have to worry about money while she's fighting cancer. I don't want charity. It's not charity, it's back pay for the 6 years my company profited from your work without compensating you. Consider it a bonus for services already rendered. He left before she could argue, walking out of the hospital into late morning sunlight that felt too bright after the fluorescent corridors. His phone was still buzzing. The world was still spinning. And somewhere in Manhattan, Theodore Vance was probably already mobilizing forces to destroy him. Ryan Calloway smiled and got in his car. Let them come. He had work to do, and for the first time in years, it was work that actually mattered. The emergency board meeting was called for that afternoon, and Ryan knew before he walked into the conference room that it was going to be brutal. David Sterling had sent a text at noon that simply read, "Vance called everyone. They're terrified. Good luck." The board members were already seated when Ryan arrived, 11 faces ranging from concerned to openly hostile. At the head of the table sat Bernard Hartwell, the company's founder and largest shareholder after Ryan. Bernard was 73, wore suits that cost more than cars, and had forgotten more about business than most people would ever learn. He was also the only person in the room Ryan genuinely respected. "Ryan!" Bernard's voice was calm, which was somehow worse than anger. "Sit down. We have concerns." Ryan sat. "I imagine you do." "Theodore Vance called me this morning," said Patricia Moss, the board member who represented the pension fund investors. "He said you're planning to publicly accuse him and Blackstone Ventures of corporate malfeasance related to an acquisition from 6 years ago. He said you're trying to destroy his reputation to cover up problems with our own systems. Vance is a liar." "Then explain," Bernard said. "Because right now we're hearing that you've hired the engineer who designed the algorithm our entire company runs on, that you've promised her complete control of the technology division, and that you're planning some kind of crusade against the venture capital industry. That's a lot of concerning information to receive secondhand." Ryan looked around the table. These people had trusted him with billions of dollars. They deserved the truth, even if it destroyed him. "3 nights ago, our global routing system nearly collapsed," he began. "The failure would have cost us somewhere between $12 and $15 billion. None of our engineers could solve it. A waitress at a restaurant solved it in 5 minutes. That waitress was Dr. Evelyn Carter, the architect of the original algorithm that Blackstone acquired and deployed prematurely, resulting in an accident that killed 12 people. The same algorithm that we've been running our company on for 5 years without knowing its full history." The silence was absolute. "You're telling us," Patricia said slowly, "that our entire operational infrastructure is built on technology connected to a fatal accident?" "Yes." "And you didn't think to mention this before now?" "I didn't know before now. I acquired Techlogis 5 years ago. They had a functional routing system. I didn't question where it came from. That was my mistake." "Your mistake?" Another board member, James Chen, leaned forward. "Ryan, if this becomes public, we're finished. Every regulatory agency will be crawling through our operations. Our insurance premiums will skyrocket. Customers will flee. This is an existential threat to the company." "Which is why we're going to fix it," Ryan said. "Dr. Carter has agreed to rebuild the entire system from the ground up, done properly this time, with full testing, proper safeguards, everything that was skipped the first time." "How long will that take?" 18 months, maybe 2 years. 2 years? Patricia looked like she might be sick. "Ryan, we can't operate under that kind of uncertainty for 2 years. The market will destroy us. Then the market destroys us. But I'm not going to keep running a company on technology that I know is fundamentally flawed. I'm not going to be a deal with a CEO who ignores warnings until people die and then acts surprised." Bernard had been quiet through all of this, watching Ryan with an expression that was impossible to read. Now he spoke. "What about Vance? Why confront him?" "Because what happened to Evelyn Carter was wrong. They destroyed her career to cover up their own corruption. And I'm not going to quietly benefit from that while pretending it didn't happen." "That's very noble," James said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "But nobility doesn't pay dividends. You're proposing that we take an enormous financial hit, weather a potential scandal, and spend years rebuilding our core systems. All for what? To make yourself feel better about past injustices you had nothing to do with?" "I had everything to do with it," Ryan shot back.
I built this company on that algorithm. I made billions from Evelyn's work while she was serving coffee. I don't get to claim I'm innocent just because I didn't know the details. So you're going to destroy the company out of guilt. I'm going to fix the company before someone gets killed. There's a difference. Patricia shook her head. Ryan, I understand that you're feeling responsible, but your responsibility is to this company, to the shareholders, to the employees who depend on us for their livelihoods. If you pursue this crusade against Vance, if you publicly admit that our systems are flawed, you're putting all of that at risk. And if I don't, I'm putting lives at risk, which matters more. That's not a fair question. It's the only question that matters. Bernard raised a hand, silencing the room. I want to speak with Ryan alone. Everyone else, please step out. The other board members exchanged glances but obeyed. When the door closed behind the last one, Bernard stood and walked to the window, looking out over Manhattan. Your father would have handled this differently, he said. Ryan felt his jaw clench. My father's dead. I know. I was at the funeral. You were 12 years old, trying very hard not to cry. Bernard turned. Do you know why I backed you when you wanted to buy this company? You were 27, untested. Everyone said I was crazy to trust someone that young with that much money. You said I reminded you of yourself. I lied. You reminded me of your father, smart, ambitious, absolutely convinced that you could outsmart any problem through sheer force of will. Bernard's voice softened. Your father built 3 successful companies before he was 40. He also destroyed 2 marriages, alienated both his children, and died of a heart attack at 53 because he never learned when to stop fighting. I'm not my father. No, you're worse. Your father at least had the excuse of ignorance. He genuinely believed that success justified any cost. You know better. You know what this industry does to people, and you're choosing to blow everything up anyway because you can't live with the guilt. So what would you do? Ryan demanded. If you found out everything you built was connected to corruption and death, would you just keep going, pretend it was fine? I did find out, Bernard said quietly. 40 years ago, I was running a manufacturing company. We had a supplier in Southeast Asia. Cheap materials, good prices, no questions asked. Then I visited the facility, saw 12-year-old children working 16-hour shifts in conditions that would make you weep. I came home and told my board we were cutting ties immediately. What happened? They fired me, replaced me with someone who didn't have such inconvenient morals. The company is still operating today, still using those suppliers. I accomplished nothing except destroying my own career. Bernard met Ryan's eyes. That taught me something important. Martyrdom feels good. It feels righteous. But it rarely actually helps anyone. The system grinds on whether you sacrifice yourself or not. So you're saying I should do nothing? I'm saying you should be smart about how you do something. Going after Vance publicly? That's ego. That's you wanting to be the hero who brings down the villain. It'll feel great until his lawyers bury you in litigation and his PR people paint you as a reckless CEO who endangered his own company for personal reasons. Then what do you suggest? Bernard walked back to the table and sat down. Work with Evelyn to rebuild the system, quietly, properly. Make Titan Horizon the safest, most reliable logistics network in the world. Then, when you have proof that you've actually fixed the problems, when you have something solid to show, release a full public accounting of what was wrong and how you corrected it. Don't make this about Vance. Make it about what you built. And Vance gets away with it. Vance has gotten away with worse for 30 years. One more won't matter. But if you build something genuinely good, something that proves there's a better way to do business, that actually changes things. Legacy beats revenge, Ryan. Every time. Ryan sat with that, turning it over in his mind. Part of him hated it. Wanted to burn Vance's world down the way Vance had burned Evelyn's. But Bernard was right. The satisfaction would last maybe a week before the consequences crushed everything. What about the board? Ryan asked. Patricia looked ready to call for my removal. Patricia's afraid, they all are. But they also know you've never steered them wrong before. Give them a plan, a real one. Show them how this transition happens without destroying the company. They'll come around. And if they don't, then I'll remind them that I control enough shares to make their lives very difficult if they try to remove you. Bernard smiled slightly. I'm old, Ryan. I can afford to be difficult. It's one of the few pleasures I have left.
Ryan felt something in his chest loosen. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You're still about to make your life exponentially harder, but at least you'll do it intelligently. Bernard stood. Bring Evelyn to the next board meeting. Let them see who she is. Let her explain what she's going to build. People are always less afraid when they understand what's happening. That evening, Ryan picked up Sarah from school and took her to the place with the really good mac and cheese. She was chattering about something that had happened at recess, some complicated drama involving trading cards and disputed ownership that required a 7-year-old's perspective to fully comprehend. So then Emma said it wasn't fair because she traded her holographic one, but Marcus said the trade was final and you can't take backsies. And I said maybe they should ask the teacher, but nobody wanted to do that because what if she said trading cards aren't allowed at all, and then we'd all be in trouble? Sarah paused for breath. What do you think, Daddy? I think complicated problems rarely have simple answers. That's what you always say when you don't know. Ryan laughed despite himself. You're right. I don't know. What do you think should happen? Sarah considered this seriously, the way she considered all questions, her face scrunched up in concentration. I think Marcus should give back the card because even if the trade was official, Emma's sad and making your friend sad is worse than following rules. That's a good answer. Are you okay, Daddy? You seem different. Different how? I don't know, less smooth. You usually seem very smooth, like you know exactly what you're doing all the time. Now you seem bumpy. Ryan almost choked on his water. Bumpy. Yeah, like you're figuring things out instead of already knowing. It's okay, though. I like bumpy better. Smooth people are scary. Out of the mouths of children, Ryan thought. I met someone this week. Someone very smart who helped me solve a big problem. Is she nice? How did you know it was a she? Sarah rolled her eyes. Because when it's a boy, you say colleague or associate or boring words like that. When it's a girl, you say someone, like it's a secret. When did you get so observant? I've always been observant. You just don't usually notice. She twirled mac and cheese around her fork. So is she nice? She's complicated. She went through something really hard and it changed her. But I think underneath that, yes, she's nice. Are you going to marry her? What? No, Sarah, I just met her. Okay, but if you do, can I be in the wedding? Emma got to be a flower girl for her cousin, and she said it was the best day ever, and I want to be a flower girl too. If I ever get married, which I won't, you will absolutely be the flower girl. Good. Sarah seemed satisfied with this. Can we get dessert? They got dessert, some terrible frozen concoction that was more whipped cream than actual food. Sarah's face ended up covered in chocolate sauce. Ryan took a picture to send to Jennifer with the caption, "This is why children can't be trusted." Jennifer's response came back immediately. "This is why you can't be trusted with children. Also, the board members won't stop calling me." What did Bernard say? Ryan typed back, "He told me to be smart instead of righteous, building instead of burning. Bernard's a wise man. He also said I'm worse than my father. Bernard's a very wise man." Ryan was putting Sarah to bed when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Calloway?" The voice was unfamiliar, male, with an accent he couldn't place. "I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Vance. He'd like to meet with you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., Hudson River Park, North End, just the two of you. Tell Vance if he wants to meet, he can come to my office during business hours." Mr. Vance thought you might prefer a more private conversation, off the record. No lawyers, no witnesses, just two businessmen talking frankly. Every instinct Ryan had screamed that this was a trap. And if I decline? Then Mr. Vance will assume you're not interested in avoiding unnecessary unpleasantness. He has some information you might find valuable. Information about Dr. Carter that didn't make it into your background check. Ryan's grip tightened on the phone. 7 a.m. I'll be there. Excellent. Come alone, Mr. Calloway. This conversation requires discretion. The line went dead. Ryan stood in the hallway outside Sarah's room, listening to her gentle breathing through the door, and wondered what he'd just agreed to. He called Evelyn. She answered on the third ring, sounding distracted. "Hello? It's Ryan. Vance wants to meet tomorrow morning. Alone. Says he has information about you." There was a long pause. "Don't go." "I have to. Ryan, this is exactly what he does. He finds leverage, discovers secrets, uses them to control people. Whatever he thinks he knows about me, it's not worth walking into that meeting. What if he's right? What if there's something I should know? Then I'll tell you myself. Another pause. I wasn't always a waitress. I had a life before Meridian. Parts of it weren't great, but whatever Vance dug up, it's my story to tell, not his. Don't let him weaponize my past. Evelyn, please, I'm asking you, don't go. Ryan closed his eyes. Thought about Bernard's advice, about being smart instead of righteous, about the difference between legacy and revenge. Okay, he said, I won't go. Thank you. She sounded relieved. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. We have a lot of work to do. After they hung up, Ryan texted the unknown number. Tell Vance I'm not interested. Any information he has about Dr. Carter, he can keep. The response came back within seconds. Your choice. But you should know that Dr. Carter's mother isn't dying of natural causes. The cancer was caused by exposure to industrial chemicals at a factory where she worked. A factory owned by a company that Blackstone Ventures acquired and dissolved. Just thought you might want to know what else Dr. Carter might be hiding. Ryan stared at the message for a long time. Then he called Evelyn back.
Did you know, he asked when she answered, about your mother's cancer, about it being connected to Blackstone? The silence on the other end of the line was answer enough. Why didn't you tell me? Because it doesn't matter. Her voice was strained. My mother got sick, that's all that matters. The why doesn't change anything. Evelyn, if Blackstone caused her cancer, or is she yours?
Then what? We sue them? Take them to court? Spend years fighting legal battles while my mother dies? I made that choice already, Ryan. I chose to take care of her instead of seeking justice. I chose her comfort over revenge. But Vance knows I won't do anything about it because doing something would take time and energy I don't have. He's offering you this information because he thinks it'll make you distrust me, make you wonder what else I'm hiding. That's how he operates. He finds the thing that hurts most and uses it as a weapon. Ryan sat down heavily on his couch. I'm sorry. For what? For all of it. For making you explain things you shouldn't have to explain. For not trusting you when you asked me not to meet with him. For being exactly the kind of person you thought I was. You're not, though. Evelyn's voice softened slightly. If you were that person, you wouldn't have called me back. You would have gone to the meeting, gotten the information, and used it however you wanted. The fact that you're asking me about it first means you're trying. That counts for something. Does it count enough? I don't know yet. Ask me again when we're done rebuilding the system. When I actually see if you can follow through on the promises you made. They talked for a few more minutes about logistics, about the team Evelyn wanted to assemble, about timeline and resources. Business conversation that felt almost normal despite everything underneath it. After they hung up, Ryan sat in his darkened living room and thought about all the ways people hurt each other. Deliberately and accidentally. Through action and inaction. Through systems designed to crush anyone who couldn't play the game correctly. His phone buzzed one more time, Vance himself this time, not an intermediary. You made the wrong choice, Calloway. I offered you a way out, a chance to understand who you're really dealing with. Now, you're going to learn the hard way that loyalty is expensive. Ryan didn't respond, just blocked the number and set his phone down. Tomorrow, Evelyn would walk into his office for the first time as an employee instead of a waitress. They'd start the long work of tearing down everything he'd built and rebuilding it correctly. The board would push back, investors would panic, Vance would attack from every angle he could find. But tonight, Ryan had made a choice. A small one, maybe. Believing someone when they asked him to. Choosing trust over control. It wasn't much, but it was something. He got up and checked on Sarah one more time. She was sprawled across her bed, one arm flung over Dr. Whiskers, completely at peace. Ryan pulled the blanket over her gently and stood in the doorway watching her breathe. I'm trying to be better, he whispered again. For you, for Evelyn, for everyone depending on me to get this right. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm trying. Sarah stirred slightly in her sleep but didn't wake. Ryan turned off the light and closed the door and went to his own room to not sleep and think about algorithms and napkins and all the ways one person could save another if they just paid attention. The next morning arrived too soon and too bright. Ryan was in his office by 7, going through emails and preparing for what would either be the beginning of something good or the beginning of the end. At 8:45, Jennifer knocked and stuck her head in. "She's here. Early. Brought 3 other people with her." "Who?" "Engineers. She said they're the only ones she trusts to do this right. 2 of them are former Meridian employees. The third is apparently some kind of prodigy who dropped out of Berkeley to protest their corporate partnerships." Sounds like Evelyn's kind of people.
They're all wearing jeans and look like they haven't slept in a week. I like them already. Jennifer paused. You ready for this? No, but we're doing it anyway. That's the spirit. Ryan stood and straightened his tie, looked at the napkin in its protective sleeve, still sitting on his desk like a talisman. Equations that had saved everything, written by someone who'd lost everything and somehow still chose to help. He picked it up and put it in his desk drawer. Time to stop looking backward. Send them in, he told Jennifer. The door opened and Evelyn walked in, followed by 3 people who looked exactly as Jennifer had described. Young, tired, brilliant in the way that made them terrible at hiding it. They stared at Ryan with varying degrees of suspicion and hostility. Evelyn stood in front of his desk, wearing jeans and a plain sweater, looking more like herself than she had in a waitress uniform. More solid somehow, present. "Mr. Calloway," she said formally, "this is my team. Michael Chen, Sarah Okonkwo, and David Park. They've all reviewed the preliminary audit of your systems. They have concerns." I imagine they do. Michael stepped forward. He was maybe 25, rail thin, with hair that suggested he'd forgotten what a comb was. "Your code is a nightmare. We found 17 critical vulnerabilities in the first 2 hours. The pre-processing layer Evelyn designed is literally the only thing holding the entire system together. If we remove it to rebuild, everything collapses. So we don't remove it until we have a replacement ready." "That's not how this works," Sarah said. She was older, maybe 35, with the kind of confidence that came from being underestimated for years and being right anyway. "The problems are architectural. We can't build a new foundation while the old building is still standing. We're going to have to transition the entire fleet to a temporary manual oversight system while we rebuild. That means slower operations, higher costs, and a lot of very angry customers." "How much slower?" 30% operational capacity. Maybe 40 if we're lucky. Ryan did the math quickly. 30% capacity for 18 months would cost somewhere between $3 and $4 billion in lost revenue. The board was going to murder him. "Do it," he said. David, the youngest of the 3, blinked. "Just like that?" "Just like that. What do you need?" Evelyn pulled out a tablet and brought up a document. "Complete access to all systems, authority to hire 50 additional engineers of our choosing. A dedicated facility, separate from your main operations where we can work without interference, and a direct line to you that bypasses all middle management. When we say something is wrong, you listen. No debates, no committee reviews, no corporate approval processes. Done. We haven't told you the budget yet." "I don't care. Tell me what you need, and you'll have it." The 4 of them exchanged glances. Evelyn's expression was unreadable, but Ryan thought he saw something shift in her eyes. A little less suspicion, a little more possibility. "There's one more thing," Evelyn said. "When we finish this, when the system is operational and we're ready to go public with what we've built, I want you to do it with me. Not as the CEO taking credit. As a partner. This is our work, both of us. You providing the resources, me providing the knowledge. Equal billing. Evelyn, this is your work, your vision. I should stop being invisible," she interrupted. "You were right about that, even if you said it for the wrong reasons. I spent 6 years hiding. Being small, pretending I didn't matter. I'm done with that. But I'm not doing this alone. If we're going to change how this industry operates, we do it together. Show people that there's a different way to build things, that profit and ethics don't have to be enemies." Ryan extended his hand across the desk. "Partners." Evelyn shook it. Her grip was still firm, still certain, but this time there was something else in it too. Hope, maybe, or just the willingness to try. "All right," she said, turning to her team. "Let's go tear down a multi-billion-dollar empire and build something better." They filed out, already arguing about timeline and resource allocation, leaving Ryan alone in his office. Through the window, he could see Manhattan stretching out in all directions, a city built on ambition and ruthlessness and the accumulated weight of a million small compromises.
Somewhere in that city, Theodore Vance was probably planning his next move. Somewhere, board members were calculating risks. Somewhere, families were depending on jobs that Ryan was about to make much more uncertain. But somewhere else, a woman who'd been crushed by this system was being given the chance to rebuild it correctly. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was how change actually happened, not through grand gestures or righteous crusades, but through small choices made by imperfect people trying to be slightly better than they were yesterday. Ryan's phone buzzed. Sarah, sending a picture of herself at school making a ridiculous face, accompanied by the text, "Miss you, Daddy? Still bumpy?" He smiled and typed back, "Very bumpy, but getting better." Then he rolled up his sleeves and got to work. The first 3 months were hell. Titan Horizon's stock dropped 23% the day Ryan announced the transition to reduced capacity. Financial analysts called it corporate suicide. Competitors smelled blood and started poaching clients with promises of uninterrupted service. 2 board members resigned. 3 major investors threatened lawsuits. And through it all, Evelyn and her team worked 16-hour days in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn that smelled like old coffee and desperation. Ryan visited the facility every week, usually late at night when the rest of the city was sleeping. He'd find Evelyn at a standing desk, surrounded by monitors displaying code that looked like poetry written in a language he'd never learned. She rarely looked up when he entered, just acknowledged his presence with a slight nod before returning to whatever problem she was solving. "You should go home," he'd say. "So should you," she'd reply. "I did." Tucked Sarah in. Read her 3 chapters of whatever fantasy book she's obsessed with this week. Came back. Why? Because if this fails, I want to fail knowing I did everything I could. Evelyn would finally look at him then, her eyes tired but clear. "It's not going to fail. The math works. The architecture is sound. It's just going to take time." Time was the one thing Ryan couldn't buy, no matter how much money he had. The attacks from Vance started small. Anonymous articles questioning Ryan's judgment, whisper campaigns among investors about his mental state. Then they escalated. A leaked memo suggesting Ryan was using company resources for a personal vendetta. Photos of him entering the Brooklyn facility at odd hours with speculation about what he was really doing there. Jennifer handled most of it with the ruthless efficiency she was famous for. But even she was starting to show cracks. "They're digging into Evelyn's past," she told Ryan one morning, dropping a folder on his desk. "Vance hired a private investigation firm. They're looking for anything they can use." "Let them look. She's already told me everything." "Has she? Because I'm seeing references to a sealed juvie record from when she was 16. Something about property destruction." Ryan opened the folder and scanned the contents. Evelyn had been arrested for breaking into a pharmaceutical company's research facility and destroying lab equipment. The charges had been dropped, the record sealed because she'd been a minor. "She was protesting animal testing," Ryan said, reading the investigator's notes. "Broke in with a group of activists, freed the animals, destroyed research that was being conducted without proper ethical oversight." "Ryan, this makes her look unstable. This makes her look like she's been fighting corruption since she was 16. If Vance thinks this hurts her, he's stupider than I thought." But Vance wasn't stupid. He knew exactly what he was doing. 3 days later, a major trade publication ran a profile on Evelyn titled "The Troubled Genius, Ryan Calloway's Controversial Hire." It painted her as brilliant but erratic, someone whose ethical rigidity had destroyed her career and might now be destroying Titan Horizon. Ryan found Evelyn in the warehouse that afternoon, staring at the article on her phone. Her team was giving her space, working quietly at their stations but clearly aware of the tension. "It's not true," Ryan said. "Parts of it are true. I did destroy my career. I am rigidly ethical according to people who think ethics are negotiable." She set down her phone. "They're going to keep doing this, finding every mistake I've ever made and using it against us. Let them. We keep working. Ryan, your stock price is just a number. It'll recover when we launch the new system. And if people lose faith before then, if investors pull out, if customers leave, then we lose. But we lose trying to build something good. That's better than winning by being like them." Evelyn was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled up a file on her screen. "Come here. I want to show you something." Ryan moved closer. The screen displayed a simulation of shipping routes across the Pacific, thousands of vessels moving in coordinated patterns that looked almost organic. "This is what we're building," Evelyn said. Not just a routing system. A complete reimagining of how autonomous logistics work. Every vessel in constant communication, sharing data about weather, currents, port conditions. The system learns from every trip, gets smarter every day. But the key difference is the fail-safes. Multiple redundant checks. Human oversight at critical decision points. If the AI encounters a situation it's not certain about, it asks for help instead of guessing.
How much safer is it? 97% reduction in potential failure scenarios compared to the current system. That's not just better than what we had, it's better than anything anyone has. Ryan watched the simulation, the elegant dance of ships across blue water, and felt something he hadn't felt in months, actual hope. When can we test it? 4 more months. Maybe 3 if Michael stops rewriting the core protocol every time he has an idea. She glanced at Ryan. Your daughter came by yesterday. Ryan's head snapped up. What? Sarah. She was with your assistant. Said she wanted to see where her daddy goes at night. Jennifer tried to keep her in the lobby, but she's very persistent. That's one way to describe her. What did she do?
Asked approximately 800 questions about what we were building. Wanted to know if the ships were going to be smart enough to avoid whales. Made Michael explain Boolean logic 3 times because she didn't believe him the first 2. Evelyn smiled, a real smile that made her look younger. She's brilliant and kind. You're raising her right. I'm trying. Most days I'm just hoping I'm not actively damaging her. She told me you're bumpy now. That used to be smooth, but bumpy is better. Ryan laughed despite himself. She's got opinions about everything. She asked me if I was the reason you're bumpy. What did you say? I said I thought maybe we were making each other bumpy together. That sometimes people bump into each other and it changes both of them. Evelyn turned back to her screen. She seemed satisfied with that answer. The moment hung between them, comfortable in a way that surprised Ryan. Evelyn went back to her code and Ryan watched the simulation a while longer before heading back to his office to fight more fires. 6 months into the rebuild, Ryan's mother called. He hadn't spoken to her in almost a year, their relationship being the kind of cordial distance that happened when 2 people had nothing in common except genetics. I saw the articles, she said without preamble, about your company troubles, about this woman you've hired. Hello, Mother. I'm fine, thanks for asking. Sarah's doing great, too. Don't be snide, Ryan. I'm calling because I'm concerned. Your father built a legacy. You're destroying it over some misguided crusade. Dad built a fortune. That's not the same as a legacy. Your father built something that mattered, something that provided for this family. And you're risking it all for what? To impress a woman? Ryan felt the old familiar anger rise in his chest. I'm doing this because it's right. Because the company was built on corruption and people died because of it. But you wouldn't understand that because understanding it would require you to care about something other than appearances. I care about you. About Sarah. About not watching you destroy everything over guilt that isn't even yours. The guilt is mine. I profited from what happened. I built an empire on stolen work and ignored where it came from. That makes me complicit. His mother sighed. You're so much like your father, convinced that you're always right, that your way is the only way. He died still believing that, Ryan, still fighting battles that didn't need to be fought. Is that what you want? To die proving a point while your daughter watches? Dad died because he worked himself to death chasing money. I'm working myself to death trying to fix what money broke. There's a difference. Not to Sarah. To her. You're just gone. Just like he was gone to you. She hung up before he could respond. Ryan sat with the phone in his hand, remembering his father. The man had been a ghost even when he was alive, always at the office, always on a call, always chasing the next deal. Ryan had sworn he'd be different, that he'd be present for Sarah. And yet here he was, spending every spare moment at a warehouse in Brooklyn, chasing a different kind of obsession. He went home early that day, found Sarah doing homework at the kitchen table, her tongue sticking out slightly in concentration the way it always did when she was thinking hard. Hey baby, how was school? Fine. We're learning about fractions. They're weird. She looked up. You're home early. Thought we could have dinner together. Maybe watch that movie you've been asking about. Sarah's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Who are you and what did you do with my dad? Very funny. I'm serious. You never come home early. Is something wrong? Ryan sat down across from her. Do you feel like I'm never here? Like I'm always working? Sarah considered this seriously. Sometimes. But Grandma's wrong. You talked to Grandma? She called yesterday. Said you were being stupid and I should tell you to stop working so hard. Sarah shrugged. But I told her you're working hard for good reasons. The other dads at school work hard for money. You're working hard to help people. That's better. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just don't usually notice because you're bumpy. She returned to her fractions. Also, I like Evelyn. She's nice, and she doesn't talk to me like I'm stupid just because I'm 7. You met her once for about 20 minutes. That was enough. She's good for you. You smile different when you talk about her. I do not. Yes, you do. It's less corporate and more real. Sarah looked up again. Are you going to marry her? Sarah, I told you. I know. You just met her, but you've been working together for 6 months now. That's not just meeting anymore. That's knowing. Ryan had no response to that. His 7-year-old daughter had just articulated something he'd been actively avoiding thinking about. Somewhere in the last 6 months, between the late nights and the shared purpose, and the way Evelyn looked when she was solving impossible problems, something had shifted. He didn't know what to call it, didn't know if it was mutual, didn't know if it mattered compared to everything else they were trying to accomplish. But Sarah was right. It was something. 8 months in, the attacks from Vance reached their peak. A coordinated assault involving 3 major business publications, 2 television segments, and a letter to the SEC demanding an investigation into Ryan's management of company resources. The board called an emergency meeting. Patricia led the charge. This has gone too far, she said, her voice shaking with anger. Our stock is down 40%. We've lost 35% of our client base. The SEC is investigating. And for what? So you can prove a point about something that happened 6 years ago? We're 9 months into an 18-month project, Ryan said calmly. We're ahead of schedule. The new system is exceeding all projected benchmarks. When we launch, we'll have the safest, most efficient logistics network in the world. If we survive that long, Ryan, the company is bleeding. We need to end this. Return to full capacity, put out a statement saying the transition was a mistake, and move on. That would be a lie. It would be survival. Bernard cleared his throat. I'd like to see the current projections for the new system. Evelyn, who'd been sitting quietly beside Ryan, pulled up her presentation. For the next 30 minutes, she walked the board through technical specifications that most of them probably didn't fully understand. But what they did understand were the numbers, the safety improvements, the efficiency gains, the projected cost savings over a 10-year period. This system, Evelyn concluded, will save approximately 40 lives per year compared to current industry standards. It will reduce environmental impact by 30%, and it will generate an estimated $2 billion in additional annual revenue once fully operational. Those aren't projections. That's what the math says. Patricia looked at the data for a long time. And you're certain it works? I'm certain. We've run 10,000 simulations. Real-world testing starts in 3 weeks. But yes, I'm certain. Then why didn't you lead with this 9 months ago? Why put us through all this uncertainty? Because 9 months ago, I didn't know if Ryan would actually let me build it right. I didn't know if he'd cave to pressure and cut corners the way everyone else does. I needed to see if he meant what he said about choosing ethics over profit. Evelyn looked directly at Patricia. He did. Every time you pressured him to quit, every time investors threatened to pull out, every time his stock price dropped, he kept going. That's why I'm certain this works. Because I finally had the resources and the support to build it correctly. The room was silent. Bernard was smiling slightly. Patricia looked like she was reevaluating every assumption she'd made. 3 weeks, she said finally. We'll see the real-world testing results in 3 weeks. If it works the way you say it will, I'll publicly apologize for doubting you, both of you. And if it doesn't, Ryan asked, then I'll personally lead the vote to remove you as CEO. Fair enough. The testing began on a cold morning in March. They started with a single vessel, a mid-sized cargo ship making a routine run from Los Angeles to Tokyo. The new system would handle all routing decisions while human operators monitored every move, ready to override if anything went wrong. Ryan watched from the operations center, surrounded by monitors and nervous engineers. Evelyn stood beside him, her hands clasped tightly enough that her knuckles were white. It's going to work, Ryan said quietly. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because you built it, and you don't build things that fail. The ship departed on schedule. For the first 6 hours, everything proceeded normally. The AI calculated routes, adjusted for weather patterns, communicated with port authorities. Smooth, perfect, boring in the best possible way. Then, 18 hours into the journey, a storm system appeared that hadn't been in any forecast. Massive, unpredictable, the kind of weather event that would test any routing system. The room went quiet as they watched the AI process options. Old system would have calculated the fastest route through or around the storm, prioritizing schedule over everything else. But Evelyn's system did something different. It asked for help. A notification appeared on the operator's screen. Uncertain optimal route. Weather pattern outside normal parameters. Human judgment requested. The operator, a veteran captain with 30 years of experience, studied the data and selected a longer route that would add 12 hours to the journey but avoid the storm entirely. The AI acknowledged the input, adjusted course, and proceeded. That's it, Evelyn breathed. That's what I wanted. An AI that knows when it doesn't know. Michael was grinning. The old system would have guessed, probably would have been fine, but there's always that chance. This system said, I'm not certain, let's ask someone who is. That's the difference between good AI and safe AI. The testing continued for 3 weeks, 15 vessels, hundreds of routing decisions. The AI performed flawlessly, and more importantly, it knew its limits. When faced with unusual situations, it consulted human operators. When the path was clear, it optimized perfectly. The data was undeniable. The system was everything Evelyn had promised and more. Ryan called a press conference for April 15th. Every major business publication sent reporters. Investors showed up. Competitors came to watch what they assumed would be a disaster. And standing at the podium beside Ryan, looking terrified but determined, was Evelyn Carter. 15 months ago, Ryan began, I made a mistake. I mocked someone brilliant because she was serving food instead of running a company. I almost missed the chance to fix a problem that could have cost lives because I judged someone by their uniform instead of their mind. Today, I want to tell you what happened when I stopped being an arrogant fool and started listening. He told them everything, the Cascade failure, the napkin, Evelyn's history with Meridian and Blackstone, the decision to rebuild rather than patch, the cost, the risk, the uncertainty. This system was built on stolen work, Ryan said bluntly. Work created by Dr. Evelyn Carter and corrupted by people who prioritized profit over safety. An accident that killed 12 people could have been prevented if anyone had listened to her warnings. I spent 5 years running a company on that corrupted foundation without knowing its history. That ignorance doesn't make me innocent. It makes me complicit. He saw reporters typing furiously, cameras flashing. This was going to be the story of the year. So we tore it down and built it right. Dr. Carter led a team that spent 15 months creating what we believe is the safest autonomous logistics system in the world. Not just safer than what we had, safer than anything anyone has. And we're going to prove it. Evelyn stepped forward, and Ryan saw her hands shaking slightly as she gripped the podium, but her voice was steady. 7 years ago, I built something I believed could change the industry. It was stolen, corrupted, and turned into something dangerous. People died because of it. For 6 years, I believed that meant I'd failed, that my work had done more harm than good, that I didn't deserve to be in this field anymore. She paused, collecting herself. Ryan Calloway gave me a second chance. Not because he's a saint. He's not. He's arrogant and stubborn and makes decisions without thinking them through. But he's also someone who, when confronted with the truth, chose to do the right thing even when it cost him billions of dollars. That's rare in this industry. That's worth acknowledging. Evelyn pulled up the technical presentation, and for the next hour she walked the press through exactly what they'd built. The safety features, the ethical frameworks, the AI that knew when to ask for help. She made the complex accessible, the technical human, and when she finished, there was a moment of silence before the questions erupted. Dr. Carter, what would you say to Theodore Vance if he were here? Evelyn looked directly at the camera. I'd say that he won the battle but lost the war. He destroyed my career, yes, but he couldn't destroy what I knew, what I could build, and now that knowledge is being used the way I always intended, to save lives, to
to prove that profit and ethics don't have to be enemies. So thank you, Mr. Vance. You made me stronger.
The press conference lasted 3 hours. By the time it ended, the story had been picked up by every major outlet. The stock price, which had been hovering at catastrophic lows, jumped 12% before the market closed. But more importantly, the conversation had changed. People weren't asking whether Ryan had made a mistake. They were asking why more companies didn't make these kinds of choices. 3 days after the press conference, Ryan's assistant informed him that someone named Theodore Vance was in the lobby demanding a meeting. "Send him up," Ryan said. Vance walked into the office looking older than Ryan remembered. Tired. The kind of tired that came from fighting battles you were starting to realize you'd already lost.
"I underestimated you," Vance said without preamble. "Both of you. I thought if I applied enough pressure, you'd break. That's what everyone does. They break or they compromise or they quietly disappear. You didn't. Was there a point to this visit? The point is that you've made me radioactive. 3 of my investors pulled out this morning. My partners are having conversations about my future with the firm, all because you decided to play hero and make me the villain. You made yourself the villain when you destroyed Evelyn's career to cover up your own corruption." Vance smiled, but there was no humor in it. "You really believe that, don't you? That this is about good versus evil, right versus wrong. It's not. It's just business. Evelyn Carter made a business decision to prioritize caution over profit. We made a business decision to prioritize profit over caution. The market rewarded us and punished her. That's how this works. People died. People die every day. In car accidents caused by driver error, in medical mistakes, in industrial accidents. That's the cost of progress. You can either accept it or you can pretend you're above it. But pretending doesn't change reality." Ryan stood. "Get out of my office. I'm leaving, but I want you to know something first. You think you've won. You think this press conference and your righteous system change anything. They don't. In 5 years, maybe 10, someone else will cut the corners you refuse to cut. They'll make the compromises you wouldn't make, and they'll beat you in the market because they're willing to do what you're not. That's the real world, Callaway. Principles are expensive. Eventually, everyone learns they can't afford them. Maybe, or maybe we just created proof that there's another way, that companies can succeed without destroying people. And maybe that proof will make it harder for people like you to keep operating the way you always have." Vance left without another word. Ryan watched him go and felt no satisfaction, just exhaustion and the grim certainty that Vance was probably right about some of it. The market would always reward ruthlessness. There would always be people willing to cut corners and crush anyone who got in their way. But there would also be people who refused, who chose the harder path because it was right. And maybe that was enough. Maybe change happened slowly, one difficult choice at a time, until eventually the world looked different than it had before. The official launch of the new system happened on a sunny day in June. All 2,700 vessels transitioned to the new routing algorithm simultaneously. Operation centers around the world monitored nervously. Everything worked perfectly. No failures. No cascade errors. Just smooth, efficient, safe logistics operations that were exactly as boring as they should be. The stock price recovered to pre-crisis levels within a month. Customer confidence returned. Competitors started asking questions about how they could implement similar safety features. And in a small ceremony that most people never heard about, Ryan established the Carter Foundation for Ethical Engineering with an initial endowment of $500 million. Evelyn oversaw the selection of the board, ensuring it would be independent, properly funded, and actually useful to engineers who tried to blow the whistle on unsafe practices. 6 months after launch, Ryan found Evelyn in her new office overlooking Brooklyn. She'd refused the executive suite in Manhattan, preferring to stay close to her team. The walls were covered in whiteboards filled with equations and diagrams. It looked chaotic and perfect. "Your mother's cancer is in remission," Ryan said. The medical bills he'd been covering had led to experimental treatments that seemed to be working. "I know. She called this morning. Wanted to know when I'm bringing you to dinner." "What did you tell her?" "That you're my business partner and she should stop making assumptions." Evelyn turned from the window. "Was I wrong?" Ryan crossed the room slowly. "I don't know. Are you interested in me making assumptions?" "That depends on what assumptions you're making. I'm assuming that somewhere in the last 15 months, while we were rebuilding systems and fighting board members and generally making our lives exponentially harder,
I fell in love with you, and I'm assuming that maybe you feel something similar, but I have no evidence for that assumption, so it could be completely wrong." Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, a real genuine smile that made her look like the person she'd been before the world tried to break her. "That's a good assumption," she said. "Not perfect, but good enough. Good enough works for me." They kissed, tentative at first and then certain, and through the window the city sprawled out beneath them, indifferent and eternal. Sarah was delighted when Ryan told her, "I knew it. I totally knew it. Can I be a flower girl now? We're not getting married yet." "But you will eventually, right? Because you're bumpy together, and that's good." "Probably. Yeah. Eventually. Good. Also, Dr. Whiskers approves. I asked him, and he said Evelyn seems nice and way smarter than you, so you should probably hold on to her." Dr. Whiskers is a very wise rabbit. A year after launch, Titan Horizon had the lowest accident rate in the industry. 3 competitors had adopted similar safety frameworks after seeing the success. The Carter Foundation had helped 12 engineers blow the whistle on unsafe practices, and 5 companies had implemented changes as a result. It wasn't revolution, it wasn't total transformation of the industry, but it was something. It was progress, slow and difficult and real. Ryan kept the napkin in a frame on his office wall, not hidden in a drawer anymore, visible. A reminder of the night a waitress had saved his company and changed his life by refusing to be invisible. Evelyn saw it one day and laughed. "That thing is a disaster. My handwriting was terrible because I was shaking." "It's perfect," Ryan said. "It's proof that solutions can come from anywhere if you're willing to look." That's very philosophical. I'm a very philosophical person now. Ask anyone. You're a person who got lucky that a waitress knew math. I'm a person who almost missed the most important person in his life because I judged her by her uniform instead of her mind. That's not luck. That's me being an idiot and getting a second chance I didn't deserve. Evelyn kissed him softly. "You're still an idiot sometimes, but you're my idiot. That counts for something." On a random Tuesday, 2 years after that rainy night in Manhattan, Ryan walked into his office to find a package waiting for him. Inside was a small glass case containing 12 stones, each one engraved with a name. The names of the fishermen who'd died in the accident. The note attached was unsigned, but Ryan knew who'd sent it. Some debts can never be repaid, but they can be remembered. Ryan placed the case next to the napkin. 2 artifacts from 2 different moments, one representing failure, one representing redemption. Together they told a complete story. That evening he went home early, found Sarah doing homework while Evelyn helped her with algebra. His daughter was 14 now, brilliant and kind, and already showing interest in engineering. Evelyn was patient with her, explaining concepts in ways that made them accessible without dumbing them down. "Daddy!" Sarah looked up. "Did you know that quantum computing could revolutionize route optimization? Evelyn was just telling me about it." "I did not know that." "Well, now you do. Also, we're ordering Thai food. I already placed the order because I knew you'd forget to eat again." Ryan looked at his daughter and the woman he loved and the comfortable chaos of a life that had been rebuilt from ashes, and he thought about all the ways people save each other, sometimes dramatically, with equations written on napkins, sometimes quietly, with patience and understanding, and the willingness to see people as they actually are instead of who you assume them to be. "Thank you," he said to both of them. "For what?" Sarah asked. "For making me bumpy, for making me better, for not giving up on me when I was still figuring out how to be human." Evelyn smiled. "You're still figuring it out. We all are. That's kind of the point." Later that night, after Sarah was asleep and the dishes were done and the city was quiet, Ryan stood at the window of their apartment and thought about the invisible people who kept the world running. The waitresses and janitors and drivers and engineers working third shift. All the brilliant minds hidden in plain sight because society had decided their value based on their job title instead of their humanity. How many other Evelyns were out there? How many solutions were being lost because the people who had them weren't being seen? It was a big question, too big for one person or one company or one lifetime. But maybe that was okay. Maybe change didn't require solving everything at once. Maybe it just required paying attention, listening, being willing to have your assumptions challenged by a stranger with a napkin and a pen. Evelyn came up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "What are you thinking about?" "How lucky I am that you looked at my schematics instead of walking past." I almost did walk past. I told myself it wasn't my problem, that I'd paid enough for trying to help. What made you stop? You looked desperate, and I remembered what desperate felt like. Thought maybe I could spare someone else that feeling. She rested her head against his back. Turns out I was sparing myself too, giving me a reason to stop hiding. They stood like that for a while, watching the city lights, two imperfect people who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something good from the ruins. In the end, that's all any of us can do. See each other clearly, choose kindness over convenience, build something that matters even when it costs everything. The world doesn't change all at once. It changes in small moments, in napkins and equations and decisions made by people brave enough to believe that better is possible. Ryan Calloway had been a lot of things: arrogant, blind, cruel without meaning to be. But he'd also been willing to change, to admit he was wrong, to burn down everything he'd built and rebuild it correctly. That had to count for something. And somewhere in Manhattan, in a restaurant where powerful people made deals that moved markets, a different waitress was probably walking past a different table, invisible and brilliant, and waiting for someone to actually see her. Ryan couldn't save all of them, but he could remember. Could build systems that valued people over profit, could raise his daughter to look beyond uniforms and titles and see the human beings beneath, could keep the napkin on his wall as a reminder that solutions come from unexpected places if you're willing to pay attention. Could love someone who'd been broken and refused to stay broken. Could be bumpy instead of smooth, imperfect instead of polished, real instead of right. In the morning, there would be new problems to solve, competitors to face, challenges that would test everything they'd built. But tonight, Ryan had everything that mattered: family, purpose, love, hope, and a framed napkin that proved miracles could be written in 5 minutes if you just knew where to look.